Well, the time has begun. E6. Okay, welcome to me rambling about me attempting to explain how custom difficulty works, what I like doing, and I hope I'll provide some examples for you. Let's see. Don't expect anything extremely professional here. I don't know how Mem did his session, but me, I'm just going along. I only have a basic idea of what I'm doing for this, so bear with me. I'll figure it out as I go along. Right? So I also should note that well yes, I do like making my difficulties. There is no there is no one let's see. There's no one just because this is the way I like to do things doesn't mean in this is necessarily what you have to do exactly, because massive disclaimer, I actually don't really follow some sort of random ass as I don't no, I don't follow like typical game design principles. I mean, like I don't know anything about game design, as I'll explain further later on. I just do a bunch of stuff I feel, so everything I do perfectly subjective. So well, you can use what I like to do personally as a basic, like as a basic setup for your own difficulties. Keep in mind that I am not necessarily an authoritative or objective source. This is simply advice for if you want, I suppose, a starting point. Just understanding what I like doing. Also, very important question. How do I use light mode? I like light mode. That is why. Yeah. So, pretty much what I'm thinking to do about the set. The main goal of the session, where I'm thinking of doing, is I'm just gonna explain what each part of the CD file does. Just go through each parameter and refer to like the 6x2 file and like the FC file for like examples of CD2 stuff, and then whatever the hell you can do. I'll explain what I like to do too, and some of my philosophy behind some of the things I like doing. And then at the end, I'll do questions. Let's see. How to not notepad code. Yes, I think it's very okay. I actually when back when it was only CD1, I actually got away with just using the in-game editor to edit my files, which was extremely funny. But with CD2, no, that's not possible anymore. You really have to get like a dedicated coder like VS Code right here to make editing files not painful. Yes, I would suggest saving the question for question session. But these are funny questions, so I must answer them. Anyways, okay, fine. Let's get going. So I'm gonna just go in order of all the important stuff. I'm just gonna go in order from the top of the file to what you find at the top of the file all the way to the bottom. So we have a standard 6x2 file loaded up right now. So name. I hope that's obvious. Okay. Pretty much there you can also there's a description field. I think that's also self-explanatory what you can do exactly. So it appears for CD2. Description field is optional, so that's nice. Dwarfs. Ignore this. This is just if you want to turn off head bouncing. That's really all it is. That's not very important. Though I do believe with this dwarves module, you can do other funny things with it. I don't know what, but I think you can. But as far as I know, the only practical reason why you'd ever turn this is get rid of head bouncing, that's all. Alright, so the caps module. The caps is as explained by these other submodules, max enemies force, max active enemies. These are I think self-explanatory what they do. They're the cap of enemies about how much stuff can exist at a given time. Now, what are these? Now, why are these numbers here? Well, honestly, these are just always been the standard. I think I remember it used to be like 180 cap for like everything, but then CD1 came out, and then you could adjust it, and then that's when you could start adjusting the enemy cap based on player count. And then at some, I don't exactly remember why, but these kind of these just kind of became the default numbers. 90, 120, 180, 180 for like each player amount respectively. Now, but I will tell you some general advice for setting these. Of course, for lower player counts, you do want less bugs to exist at a given time, because one of the major issues with too many bugs, especially as you get lower in players, is you get bugs that start wandering around. Like, because by default DRG has an enemy cap of 32 ground enemies, 32 flying enemies per player that can aggro on each player at any given time. And so, if you have too many bugs that exist on the map, so whether you're in single player or in 4 player, what basically happens is you just get bugs that just start wandering around, not aggroing, and it's very finicky what happens. It becomes very finicky about what bug aggroes on you, so you could just walk through a bunch of pile of bugs that are wandering around, and suddenly they start attacking you or whatever, and it is a very annoying thing to deal with. You could really abuse this in a true solo by just wading through bugs that aren't even trying to attack you, but it gets extremely annoying real fast because these bugs, sometimes they aggro onto you, sometimes they aggro off of you, so you don't want too many bugs going all over the map, just doing nothing. Also, performance issues are a very real thing, so you don't want too many bugs that exist on any given time, that you don't want to break people's computers, is what I'm saying, if you're making a more typical difficulty. And also you should keep in mind, if you're balancing these caps, you probably, unless you're going to explicitly mention you're balancing for like a mod that increases the enemy aggro cap, like the more enemy attackers, or if you're using something like bitfix, um, you should always assume that you're gonna balance around typical enemy aggro caps for like 32 ground, 32 flying. So there's that in mind. Me personally, well, however, I do use a bitfix, some this bitfix thing that does increase the enemy and the aggro cap for like 64 ground, 64 flying. That is something I do, but that's not. But it just, for what it does, it just speeds up. It's more for like my own sanity. I have noticed that it's not extremely significant in like, oh, suddenly there's a dead dwarf on the ground. Every single bug in the cave will aggro onto them. So I haven't found that to be a significant confounding factor in making difficulties. And also I should keep in mind CD2. So this is scaled for up to for 4 players, because CD2 is smart enough to realize that it'll just keep repeating the last value for like however many players you want. And because the caps are the same for like 3 and 4 player, you only need to type 180 once, and it'll automatically continue 180 for like 4 player scaling, and even more because there is a max players a thing you can add in CD2 these days, which is very nice. Resupply cost. I think, as far as I know, the only thing that you can control about resupplies is the cost, which is a bit self-explanatory. Now, I think it should be also obvious. Well, it should be simple to pick up that the more expensive your resupplies, the harder your difficulty is going to be, because this is, from what I find, this is a great way to control pacing. Because, well, I think it's a given. If your resupplies cost more, there's going to be less potential. If your resupply cost is increased, then it's words. Let me think. Then you're going to have less potential resupplies overall in the cave, and it sucks even more depending on whatever mission you play on, because each mission has a habit of generating nitrogen. Each mission, each biome has its own quirks on generating how much nitrogen there is in the cave. So you want to keep that in mind. And pretty much the default 40. Yeah, I think it was 40 or 60 the default 6x2 amount. I don't remember. I think, but way back then, I think 60. I could be wrong on this, but I believe 60 cost nitro resupplies were like the standard for 6x2, but then that got moved to 6. I think that became standard only for EDDs once you could use that for custom difficulty. No. There were other mods back in the day that allowed that just set resupply costs before CD. So yeah, I think what happened was the default cost was 40 for like chill games, and then it was used for 60 for EDDs because nitro carries over in between stages. So there's that. Now I think, of course, you don't want to put. So general ideas, you don't want to make the resupply cost too low because, well, if you make it too low, then that basically means you could just keep stacking. You have a lot of potential health and ammo. You could just keep chugging when things get hard. So you don't want that. That also makes pacing a lot easier because you aren't, the team. If you have so much nitro, the team can afford to, go a bit slower, which I think that makes, which I hope that which does generally mean the difficulty is a bit easier because you don't have to go as fast. Make it too high, however, and you end up with extreme nitro starvation moments because, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes in the RG, caves will just generate wacky amounts of nitro, and occasionally the team will get screwed early on because it's just way too unreasonable to get enough nitro early, and they just die of nitro starvation. Or, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly what Adrian mentioned. Sometimes that just happens and you're just screwed, which is highly unfortunate. However, it is funny because, you think, because because the nitro cost does get more expensive in my harder difficulties because I really want to amp up the pacing pressure. So that's why I've been raising nitro costs recently in my layer difficulties. And speaking of dynamic resupplies, that is a thing that is very possible to do. Pretty much. Oh, what the fuck is this? Okay. Hey, so one of the fun things about CD2 is that you have these mutators, which basically allow you to modify values based on certain conditions, which is the most basic way I can explain it. And so, as I mentioned, you don't want to starve your players early on of nitro, because personally, I don't think that's very fun. Just oh, let's push escape. Nope, we ran out of nitro. Mission dies. You lose the mission 5 minutes in because you just ran out of nitro and died. I don't think that's very fun. So, what I like to do is that, depending on what I do, basically is that your first resupply is 40, and then everything else is the default resupply cost. So this, for example, this is the FC file. So what this is basically telling is, let me just explain what each line of code here does. So mutate if float. So it's going to be an if statement that takes a float value. So a number. The value is, I suppose, the comparison. What's comparing against. So it's going to be checking how many resupplies have been called, and it's going to be checking if the amount of resupplies called is exactly 0, and if there has not been any resupplies called yet, then it's going to cost 40. Otherwise, it's going to go to the default cost of 60. So the equivalent of this in CD1 would be the starting nitra parameter. But since it's CD2, you can do this instead. Now, I'm pretty sure you can now because there's way more ways to modify resupply costs. There's the only ways I've really messed with it right now is just go is to just give people a cheaper starting resupply and the more expensive default cost later on. But you can make the resupply cost fluctuate with time. I don't. Let me see. Wait. Okay. Actually, hold on. I will go open. Hold on. I think what I'm gonna do is let me go open DRG for a moment. Actually, because there is a very funny example of a difficulty that changes resupply costs randomly. Let me go pull it up. All right. I hope I still have it saved. God. Okay. Let's see. Um. Just put this over here. So, let me find it. So, as you see, let me close DRG now. It's like, as you can see here, Brain made this difficulty back when CD2 was still in alpha. So this RSM here, it stands for Resupply Stock Market. Ignore everything else here. As you can see, you can do this. What this basically does is, wait, what the hell is the interval? Now, I don't remember how frequently the resupply cost changes. Like, I don't know if it's like every tick in game or whatnot. But this was a very funny difficulty to play because as you can see here, the cost, it follows this accumulate function, which I don't really understand. So the values. The value is by how much it changes by, I believe. And it's going to do a random choice. So, and your choices are all in this array, which, as you see, it can fluctuate by quite a bit. And when it comes to a random choice, you can either explicitly define the probabilities of each choice, or it'll automatically do like an even distribution of probabilities if you don't explicitly define probabilities for each choice. So it would be like, how many choices are there? There's like, so each choice here has a 1 out of 11 in choice of being selected. Yeah, basically. Everything is 1 out of 11 probability. Oh, wait, I'm fucking dumb. Yeah, you're right. There's multiple 4s. There's multiple 1, I mean, so the probability of 1 being selected is higher, but if everything was a unique value, then what I said would be correct. And so that's basically, so you could either put down duplicate entries, or you could just define choices, or you could just use the weight array to give each specific choice in the array a specific probability. I think I have an example of that somewhere actually. And then you have your min. This is like the limit. So your resupply cost cannot be it cannot be less than 30, but it also cannot go over 30, and the value starts at 40. So yeah, that's exactly what happened. That in like whenever I played this difficulty, it's like it's just constantly looking at your resupply costs with with the inventory mod. I always forget what it's called. And just constantly looking at it quick when you call a resupply when it's cheap and not do it when it's stupid expensive. And like it has led to some very interesting moments where you suddenly starve yourself of nitro because like oops you called it when it was at 80 resupply. So yeah, it was quite the mess. Quite the goddamn mess, that whole difficult experience. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's the thing. Because pretty much I think whenever you put an array in CD2, it's going to automatically assume that's for if it's an array that's not for something like choices. Like if you just straight up put an array like I don't know. Like say this, like say this for example, right? Just ignore typing the same numbers over and over again. Like I'm pretty sure this automatically assumes like you're scaling for a player amount. So this can go on indefinitely with CD2. Now in the example I just wrote here, so basically one and two player is 40. 40 reach flight costs. You have um 60 for 3 players, 70 for 4 player, 85 player, 100 6 player, 110 for 7 player, and so on and so forth. That's basically what you can do. We just change that back. You can do this for a lot of fields in CD2, I'm pretty sure. So it's very convenient. Right. I think did I cover? Yeah, I think that's enough about resupply cost. Jesus Christ. Okay. Pools. Okay, this is not in the order that I'd usually like to do it. Okay. Just for consistency's sake, let me just where the hell did I put the pools? Yeah, put out. Let me just move this just so I have the same consistency. Whatever the hell I'm doing. Okay. Right, so the difficulty setting is okay, we're starting to get into the meat of everything. Um so this module in CD2, it has let's see. This is just I believe this is not we'll talk about this later. It's not too important. So we have all of your damage, your health scaling values here. You have your damage, you have your enemy count modifier, you have encounter difficulty, stationary difficulty, your wave timers, diversity bins, your veteran chances. Let's see. This, which you have all this other and then a bunch of just of this. What I'm trying to say, this section is pretty important. So let's go in order. Base hazard. I'm pretty sure all this does is set the hazard multiplier, like the hazard bonus multiplier, and if you don't explicitly define any fields, it will refer to this hazard as your base values. So essentially, if you wanted to just create hazard 5, like it's really easy. So all you wouldn't really even need anything else in the difficulty file. Oh no, you probably still need this, but you cut all of the. No, you probably still need the pools, enemies, escort, mule modules, and all that. But the thing is, but basically all you could do that you could place on hazard 5, and then the difficulty would just be would just automatically use the hazard 5 values for all these parameters over here. So that's a convenient thing of CD2 if that's something you want to do. So, okay, so these resistance values. What the hell are these? Also, what? Oh, I know why. So this is extra large enemy damage resistance. This is for dreadnoughts, I believe. This just controls health of dreadnoughts and how these resistance these damage resistance its arrays work is like, again, it scales from 1 to 4 player, though you can hypothetically scale for infinitely how many players you want. And basically, so each enemy has a base health, right? Each enemy has a predefined base HP, base amount of HP, and the damage resistances will multiply that HP depending on what it is for whatever difficulty you have. So like, let's see, I do have a sticky notes of base enemy HPs I have saved here. Right. So say, let's see, I have a menace. Let's see, I have a menace, right? So menaces follow enemy damage resistance. So, and the menace has a base HP of 700. So, let's say it's 4 players, so 700 times 1.75, and then that's how you get the HP of a menace that's in like 6x2 4-player scaling. That's how that works. And then we go back to attempting to remember what each of these are. So I remember this is for dreadnoughts. This is for elite enemies. I always forget what each of these are for. Something to do with Omen Towers and something to do with Omen Towers. Okay, yeah. I'll just confirm with Hyung. Make sure that's correct. No. Yes. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I should have the CD2 CD guide somewhere around here. Yeah, that's right. B is for the weed, C is for the Omen Tower, D is for elites, and this is for dreadnoughts. So that's these values you want to mess around with. Pretty much, and then you could think of and then is there an E? I don't think there's an E. Because, no. There's an E. Let me see. Do I happen to randomly have an E in FC? No. I do not believe there is an E. That doesn't exist. And that, according to the CD1 guide too, at least, which is how, because this what we're going over right now is also present in CD1, doesn't exist. So, there isn't an E, I'm pretty sure. Then you have normal enemy damage resistance, right? You can think of this as controlling almost everything else in the game. There's one more module. It's let's see. Small enemy damage resistance. So, actually let's talk about small enemy damage resistance first. So what is a small enemy? So this is stuff like, I believe, swarmers, grunts, acid spitters, web spitters, Moctera spawn, Trijaws. Yeah, specifically Moctera spawn and Trijaws, not Brundles or Grabbers or Goobers. Those follow enemy damage resistance here. Let's see. Crawlers follow small enemy damage resistance. Shredders, Shockers follow small enemy damage resistance. And then, so I think those are the important ones. And then everything else in the game follows enemy damage resistance here. So like Praetorians, Oppressors, Menaces, Goobers, there's Grabbers, Bulks, you name it. No, alright, Exploders follow small enemy damage resistance too, right. And now, generally, the reason why the small enemy damage resistance isn't present in the 6x2 file because, well, 6x2 uses the same enemy damage resistance as Hazard 4 and Hazard 5, so therefore, because it's CD2, because it's not listed, it'll just draw the value from this base hazard that's specified up here, and it'll use that. So, that's convenient. So that's an example of that in action. So, and then now, for me personally, what I like doing, I've just left these all alone at the at hazard 6 values because personally, I do not enjoy making things even beefier as they already are. I don't enjoy giving things even more health because like even if you like change all of these values to like say Ike's hazard 7, even the slight increase of health is already making things a bit too tanky for my taste. So, not my not my not my flavor. Also, I highly recommend do not change this. Well, if you want to make well, I personally do not like changing this because uh well, unless you're doing again, if you want go ahead if you're doing something different, but personally I do not change this because you don't exactly want tanky grunts, do you? I think that's not something I exactly enjoy, so I've just left these values default as they are. And I've typically found that increasing health tends to restrict what you can do with your difficulty. Actually, this is a good lesson. Way back in the day, when I was first in the creation progress of L by 2, right? It was originally named 7 by 2L because because I was following 7 by 2 scaling back in the day. I mean I still used H hazard 7 HB scaling, right? Now, obviously we weren't as good back then, but from what I found was what I found was that keeping hazard 7 HP really restricted what I can do with like additional enemies. Is it restricted how much crazier stuff I could how much I can increase difficulty via like other metrics like increasing wave timers and increasing enemy amount, also increasing what types of enemies you find because like the extra HP is a very sensitive parameter I've found because like even like or I keep saying even if you increase the HP a little bit by like jumping from 106 to 107, just the additional beefy HP really just I don't know, it makes things just unpleasant. So you want to be careful. So if you do decide to choose like higher HP than 106, I'd suggest being careful. Okay. Oh Jesus Christ, I am talking for quite a bit. Hold on, let me just catch a breath, because my god, my voice is already going, and I don't like that. Um, okay, hold on. Right, okay. I think I'm good. Where the hell was I? What the hell is this image just up? Okay. Sure, whatever. Bleh. Mm. So I was talking about that enemy health, right? Very sensitive parameter. Be careful with that. Personally, I just leave it at hazard 6 values. Enemy damage modifier. I think this is relatively self-explanatory too. It modifies how many and how much damage enemies do depending on player scaling. So like, let's go back to 6x2. So these are the values here for 6x2. FC uses 107 damage values. So quite a bit of a jump, but it's fine. And pretty much, and I also recommend just sticking with like the personally I just stick to predefined like the damage value, so like hazard 6 or hazard 7 values. The most damage I have ever increased in my difficulties is wait, hold on, I'm getting a call. Alright, don't worry, I'm good again. Right, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah. I typically just like sticking to or just really in general for like health and damage and later enemy count modifier. I'll get to that soon. Like I just prefer sticking to predefined values because I know these are like tested values from like X day of creating 106 and 107. So I just use these as baselines and never touch them personally. Because if I do want more bugs, like I can just modify the difficulty, the bins all the way down here, and that feels much more easier to mess around with than just multiplying enemy count modifier itself. Because yeah, I should just get to this dude right now. No, no. I should yeah. I will. God damn it. Okay, so the reason why I stick to predefined values because it just as I just know these are been long tested by Ike back when he's creating 106 and 107. So pretty much I don't have to worry about messing around with these values and trying to trying to get around with this. So yeah, it just makes life a lot easier. And so now and yeah, we're on to enemy count modifier now. So first of all, there's this very good write up by Brain about how spawn mechanics work and how enemy count modifier plays into it is explained there. But it's basically what you think is each spawn event has a certain difficulty, and the difficulty of a spawn event is how many points it's rolled. That difficulty is then multiplied by the enemy count modifier. So let's say you have a spawn event. Let's say it's just a normal wave or some tiny wave in a swarm that has like a difficulty of 200, right? So that difficulty of 200 is then multiplied, and let's say it's 4-player scaling in 6x2. So that value is multiple. So 200 times 3.5 would be then the total difficulty that's going to be used to spawn in that event. So like so that's basically how many points that your that's how many points that can be used to like spawn bugs and whatnot. Again, this is a value. This enemy count modifier is a very sensitive value because it basically affects everything spawning in the game. Like, you can easily overwhelm your team with your players with a lot of bugs if you're not careful. Also, you might break their computers, so be careful with that. And also, another three. So let's go back to your caps. You want these to be these interact with each other, your caps and your enemy count modifier, because like Of course, if this is too high, your enemy count modifier, and this is too low, your caps, you're just going to just start spawning shit tons of bugs that just despawn themselves. And I don't think you want that, so you want to make sure that your cap is reasonable with your enemy count modifier down here. And also, by extension, it should also make sense with your difficulty rolls down here. Right. So there's that. Very sensitive. For this two, I like to stick with predefined values. So either 6 and either 7. Well, this isn't like, base either 6 and either 7. This is 6 by 2, and FC uses 7 by 2. Basically, that's how, again, just to, if you ever want, like, a multiplier difficulty, right? Like 6 by 2, 6 by 3, 7 by 4, 5 by 100. All you have to do is find the base hazard value and multiply the enemy count modifier values by whatever amount. So like times 4, times 100, whatever. So, okay. I suppose I should explain what the hell is going on in the FC section right here. So, let me remember what this does. Now, this is a goddamn mess of multiplication values. So, this is another example of CD2 at work. You can dynamically change the enemy count modifier based on certain events. So, I think I know. Let me try to figure out what's exactly happening. So multiply, right? A. So A is going to multiply your enemy count modifier based on player count, based on these conditions. So the first condition is B is it's gonna multiply based on B, and within here you're gonna go through your amazing mess, this wonderful if-else statement chain. So first it's going to check. So it's going to go check if you're playing either a point extraction. No, not point extraction. This is for when you hit the button when you call for the drop pod and Molly's coming back. And this is when after you hit the ball on PE specifically. So these are these two conditions. So it's gonna check if if either one of these two conditions are true. Then what it's gonna do is it's gonna mutate by mission type. So by default it's going to increase. So specifically by default, but this by mission type thing is you can specify values for each. It's as I said, you can specify values for whatever by each mission type. So if you want only specific values changed for certain mission types, you can just you can set a default to cover everything. You don't have to like type every single individual mission type and give them all the same value. CD2 is convenient like that, and only give different values for like the mission types you actually care about. So like here it's like PE, so it's gonna be ×2 it's going to double the enemy count modifier for point extraction. So now the reason why it does that, because let's see. Because it has been noted that the amount of bugs that spawn in the PE countdown phase has been very little. So that's why this number is a lot. It's because you cannot control like the base amounts of bugs. You can't like the base difficulties of bugs of spawns that happen during that sequence. So that's why we increase the enemy count modifiers by a stupid amount in the point extraction counter. Same goes for like other missions, like 1.6 by these values when you hit the drop pod call button, because it has been noticed that extraction tends to be a little easy. Like it doesn't have as many bugs as compared to like say a swarm or a normal wave. Yeah, exactly, because it's like predefined. And then you have this additional mess in salvage. Okay, what the hell? right. Okay. So basically, so an issue that was noticed was sometimes in the salvage uplink, it's like either a the see either a the point after the fuel cells is either way too hard because you barely got by the fuel cells by the skin of your teeth, right? And then all of a sudden there's just bugs there's already bugs flooding in. You're already in a losing scenario. But then the fuel cells completes, and then you have the spawns from that section of the mission going in, and it just gets even worse and it snowballs into a loss. That's not cool. And then, or you get the flip condition where the fuel cells was extremely easy, and then for some reason the portion while you're waiting for the drop pod to open is also extremely easy. So what this section aims to do is that first what it does. Okay, now I am way too lazy to figure out what the actual function is going on here because I'll admit these like operators of add, multiply, and whatnot are still a goddamn mess for me. So I can only explain the bit what the idea here is. What this does is that first it's going to drop the first let's see. First initially at the start of the drop pod opening phase, it's going to reset the enemy count modifier to 0. Like mutate elapse extra. Okay. The fuck does it mutate to 0? So it's going to start at like I'm not sure if it's 0 or it's going of a low number. Whatever the case, it's going to start at a low number. So like for a little bit. So your team so the team has like a moment to breathe if they just barely got all the fuel cells, right? But as the drop pod gets closer to opening, like the multiplier for the multiplier for enemy count modifier will get bigger and bigger. So like as the drop pod gets closer to opening, there's going to be more and more bugs. So difficulty. So you have a moment to breathe initially, but by the end you're probably going to be swimming in bugs again. So that's what this does. It fixes the problem it fixes the problem mostly of the drop pod opening charging up phase of being way too hard or being way too easy. So that's what that aims to do. So we've got all this. So we've got that section covered. So we've got this section covered, right? So now the final condition that the enemy count modifier can change in like FC is during an egg. It's during an egg. So it's going to check if during an egg ambush, which is like the egg ambush period is like this basically means when you pull an egg. So I think what happens is like this condition of game state is active like right after when you pull an egg for a little bit. And these two parameters right here, yeah, it's going to check. It's going to start 5 seconds it's going to start 5 seconds after the egg was pulled and stop 10 seconds after the egg was pulled. And if this condition is true, then the enemy count modifier will be multiplied by 4, because basically what we're doing here is, again, you can't exactly change. CD2 cannot directly change the difficulty of the base difficulty of bugs that spawn during an egg wave, which is why when you pull an egg and you don't get a swarm and it's just a wave, it tends to be very sad compared to like a normal wave that spawns in the mission based on timers and whatnot. So to get around that, the enemy count modifier is multiplied by some big ass number 4 to like get a nice fat to make egg waves more dangerous in FC. And otherwise, if this condition is true, then it just defaults to 1. Okay. Oh my god. So that's that entire mess dealt with. There's, of course, way more ways you could do that. There are so many more ways you could do with change the modifying enemy count modifier. Like all sorts of random ways, but that's how I do in FC. Okay, that's dealt with. Mm. Oh, my voice. Okay. Encounter difficulty. So this is convenient because this is actually an amount of difficulty that you can control, right? So so the encounter difficulty is like it's separate from stationary difficulty, as you can see here. Encounter difficulty specifically refers to bugs that have the can be used in encounters flag set to true. As in like so you can think of it like grunts, Moctera, menaces, access bears, websters, praetorians, like though I believe those have can be set to can be used in encounters true by default. And basically what an encounter is like you go to a room, right? You're walking up to a room, you get a lag spike, and then boom, there's bugs. So like they're like the bugs are already present when you first go up to a room. Hence they're the encounters. These are not stuff like spitballers, breeders, cave leeches, or nexus because those are considered stationaries. Why are they considered stationaries? Because they are. Okay, so I suppose I do have to jump. Mm. I do have to suppose I have to jump forward a bit. So okay, no, it's not. It's not here in. Yeah, exactly, Jones. Like the bugs are that spawn by default, like refinery, salvage, P, and P. Those are encountered bugs, not station. So okay, okay, okay. The 652 file does not have the stationary pool defined here because it's by default because it's again using default 105. So let me find the FC pool. Oh god. Pools. That's a mess. We'll get okay. Ignore all this stuff. Ignore all this extra stuff that's added at the moment. All right. Because by default, because stationary, the only enemies are that are classified as stationaries are by default are spitballers, breeders, nexuses, and leeches. Oh wait, barragers and Warthog brambles. I keep forgetting those exist. Those are just 6 enemies by default that are in the stationary pool. Yeah, exactly. Season 5 is a thing that exists. I need to keep that in mind. So so those like it's a good thing. So it is good that you have so they follow the amount of difficulty that's dependent on each spawn is separate from like the encounter difficulty, which is a good thing because it would be extremely annoying trying to get the proper amount of enemies that spawn, the proper amount of encounters and stations to spawn in just the right amount if you only had one parameter that controlled both of them. And so I suppose, and like I mentioned earlier, um, basically it's going to roll a value for encounter. So how it works is like you go up to a room, right? Let's say a mining mission room. So it's going to roll an amount, an encounter an encounter difficulty and a stationary difficulty, and then those two difficulties will be multiplied by the enemy count modifier to get the total amount of points that are like available to spawn shit in the room. And so typically, let's see. And then you have pretty much how you get have multiple bins for difficulties here, as you can see here for like this expected value. So you can each bin has like a specific weight that can be rolled at, and let's say this weight, this 12.5% weight is rolled here. So then that weight is rolled. Then it'll randomly choose a value between 550 and 650 to be select for the difficulty, and then that's how you get your difficulty for that. You can either have multiple bins or you can have singular bins. me personally, what I like to do is I just unless I want to do something, I guess something wonky, I suppose. I just use once a singular bin and just have a min and max value for that. So to keep things like a bit more consistent is what I like to do here. Now, and I do recommend that pretty much I think it should be good. The lower that these encounter difficulty and stationary difficulty is, the easier it is to push a room because the easier it is to push a room because there's less bugs to push. There's also less stationaries to kill. So I think it makes sense that it should be easier. The higher you make these values, the more stuff that is going to spawn, which will slow down pacing. So encounter difficulty and stationary difficulties are also good ways to help control pacing of your difficulty. Like, for example, in Send It, I specifically keep the encounter and stationary difficulty low because I want to encourage players to keep pushing. Because there's going to be frequent waves that spawn in, so the main pressure is going to be from those waves that keep spawning in and not from like stationaries and whatever that spawn preemptively before they make it to a room. So that's why I keep it relatively low in something like a faster pace difficulty like Send It. Now I suppose you can also see here that you can also change the by mission type. You can change the values, your difficulty values by mission type. So you have to do it for both for min and max, but it is possible, which is nice. Let's see, enemy wave interval. Now, this specifically refers to swarm intervals, and as in announced swarms on, say, a mining mission or a refinery. Point extraction, you can't change that for some reason, which is extremely unfortunate because point extraction is just weird. So this is very important for mining and refinery missions. And now, let me emphasize something. In general, timers are extremely sensitive parameters. Like, because I think it's obvious that if you change the frequency of how much something happens, that will make something very. You are directly changing the frequency of how often you get your bugs and whatnot. So you can really typically what I like doing is like I loosely based off my way back then. I loosely based off my my wave intervals on hazard 7 because those are quick. I think if I wanted to change this to like a hazard 7 value, like this is for hazard 6 right now. So if I want to change it for like, I think off the top of my head, this is what it is for hazard 7. I think, not sure, but it's something like this. Because like even just a few seconds is extremely important in pacing. Because this is a really good way to really just get your players to move faster, but this can also very easily make the difficulty way too difficult or way too hard if you're not careful. Like, for example, hazard 5A, right? And how a lot of things are, and how all the enemies are extremely dangerous. I haven't played it myself. From what I know, is the swarm and wave intervals are still hazard 5 speed. So you just have these very strange spikes where nothing spawns in, but whenever something does spawn in, it's extremely dangerous. You probably could actually do an interesting difficulty around that concept, but me, that's not what I'd like to do personally. So I haven't messed around with it much. So here's 6x2. So it's already so I already know that for like a player jumping from like hazard 5 to hazard 6, one of the things that they definitely have to get used to is the swarm timers, the pacing. So you want to be careful. So that's a very big jumping difference. Let's take a look at FC. You can add a lot of crazy things for it. So like as you see here, the pacing is extremely important here because 89% of the time, like okay, quick side note. The weights, personally, you could set the weights to whatever values you want, but what I personally like to do, yeah, enemy wave interval is announced one. What I personally like to do is just change the weights to like raw percentages so it's like easier to understand. Because I believe like some people, like if you check some of the older files, like the weights are like this whole number. So what you have to do is like add all the total weights and then the specific weight of a certain bin to find the probability. Instead, you can just convert it to like percentage amounts where like every single weight adds up to 1, so it's easier to digest. So this is FC. As you can see, pretty short wave intervals. Like in my experience, if your wave intervals, both normal wave interval and wave interval, are below 120, that's when things are getting really fast. So 2 minutes is like the warning sign for like you're starting to get seriously quick swarms. Yes, I am. This is a remnant from the original L. This is something way back from L/2 that still persists. It's because it is an extremely funny wave where like you have a 1% chance of loading into a mining mission and immediately getting a swarm. This has happened a few times, and we have survived this, both in ND and FC. It's difficult, but it is possible, and it really brings a new definition to hot start when it happens. Yeah. It doesn't happen often because, it's a 1% chance. But when it does, dear God, it's terrifying. So, there's that. Alright, so, now, normal wave interval. So, these normal waves are just unannounced waves of bugs that spawn periodically through the mission. So, like, these appear in mining missions, salvage missions, egg missions, refineries, elims, sabotages, deep scans. Right, I should remember. Deep scan also uses enemy wave interval because that mission has swarms. I swear to God, I'm missing a mission type. There are 8 mission types, right? Yeah, I mentioned some already. Yeah. Okay, escort's fucking weird. Yeah, escort also uses normal wave intervals, but I don't know how, because escort feels like it has its own system, I think. Like, because of like, okay, I am not too sure exactly, but I think when the dozer is moving and it's not a swarm, it uses the enemy normal wave interval. It also uses enemy normal wave interval when the dozer is like parked before you start it, and when it's parked at the heart zone. I think that's when enemy normal wave interval is used for escort. Otherwise, when it's like a swarm, it's just a swarm. There's no timers there. It's just a swarm. That just happens when you're like breaching rooms and whatever. And then like the swarm, yeah, something I have noticed myself. I don't know if you can I haven't confirmed it myself by looking in the game files, but I am pretty sure from experience that the swarm that happens during a refuel is also smaller. And I do not believe I'm pretty sure that enemy normal wave interval is not used for refueling escorts. So there's that. And then there's point extraction. Point extraction does not use enemy normal wave interval or enemy wave interval at all, because point extraction, the specific waves that point extraction uses are constant pressure. Constant pressure is this weird thing. It's this weird thing that exists. I don't like messing with, that I don't really enjoy thinking about. It's constant pressure is used in like normal swarms, point extraction as a whole, and like a few other spots, but it's something you can't exactly control, unfortunately. So it's something I just ignore. No. PE scalar has been no. The funny thing about PE scalar, point extraction scalar, that has been noted to do nothing past 1. So I don't know. That is a very interesting thing that exists. You can go read the CD1 guide on what that does exactly, but it has been noted to not do anything if you increase it past 1 or a certain value. I forgot whether it's specifically 1 or a certain value, but I just leave that thing alone. Point extraction is a forsaken mission type. That is the important lesson here. Oh god. So, anyways, massive tangent. Does it? It makes more enemies spawn to refine repair phase. If it actually does do that, that's interesting. Oh yeah. Yeah, point extraction repair phase does use constant pressure, but does it use point extraction scalar? Because point extraction scalar is a timer. I'm not sure. That I'm not too sure about. I don't know. But anyways, moving on. Goddamn water. Oh my god, I've been going for an hour already, and there's still so much more to cover. My voice, no. Oh god. So, similar concept to enemy wave interval. You don't want to make this too fast. Generally, what I like doing is keeping enemy normal wave interval slower than your swarms. So like, you typically want to, it's just in my own experience, you keep it slower. So like, because I have noticed that for some reason, if you after a swarm, right after a swarm, you don't get normal waves for a brief period of time. It is as if the timer pauses. I don't know if that is true, but that's what it feels like. So that's what the general rule I use. You should keep your normal wave intervals like a little slower, that have a slight delay over your enemy wave intervals. Let's check the FC file. So, oh god. Well, it is still pretty fast here. 2 minutes for 60% for 2 minutes of like unannounced waves. That's pretty fast. And of course you have this. Basically, what this sometimes does is you drop into a refiner, right, and all the encounters are loading in. Sometimes you get an instant normal wave, so you have even more bugs as encounters, effectively, which is very scary. It's funny, but it's also very scary. Yeah. So there's that. So now, enemy normal wave difficulty. This is, again, difficulty controls how you can just set this to control how many bugs spawn specifically during a normal wave. So like, you roll a value for your normal wave, multiplies by the enemy count modifier, then boom, that's your total amount of difficulty points for your normal wave, which is, again, yeah, I already said. I hope I explained what a normal wave is exactly. It's a normal wave is the unannounced waves that tend to spawn in most missions. So, you have it as a nice healthy value. Like this, in 6x2, it's set at this value. However, the funny thing, however, you can start making these waves a bit ridiculous in how their size. So like, for example, most of the time it's 800 to 900 here in FC, but you have a slight chance of getting a fat wave, which is this. It's also a holdover back from like L/2. So you end up with this nonsense happening, and it's very dangerous, but it's also very fun to deal with. And of course, you don't want to make this too big because you might just make everything despawn or everyone's computers die. So be careful with this, even though you can do some ludicrous things as you can see here. And all. And since we've covered the relevant bits already, so here is actually how I suppose I can show how type R works. Oh fucking hell. Okay, let's go to the basic version first. Actually, so the basic concept of send it is you get rid of swarms. So I got rid of swarms just by making it near impossible to make it near reasonably impossible to get a swarm in a type R mission. So let's see. How much is that exactly? That is you have to stay in the mission for about 3 hours to get a swarm. So I think I effectively remove swarms here. So how I get the frequent amount of bugs even back in CD1? Like I know there's a much better method to get like send it waves in like CD2 with with the wave controller, but I'll get to that later. Basically, this is what you do in CD1, and it still works in CD2. Basically, what I do is I just set the enemy normal wave intervals to be pretty quick. So like 90% of the time you get 45-second waves, and 10% of the time you have a sort of like a break wave of like 60 seconds to help you relax. The enemy normal wave difficulty is reduced compared to 6x2 because like you want smaller waves. So that's how send it works really. And I suppose I can show another example of being able to dynamically show enemy normal wave interval. This is fucking disgusting. Okay. So in type R, it's basically the FL5 version of type R. What you can do is basically what this entire thing is saying is if there is add a certain amount of time to the wave interval if there's a dead dwarf. So like so if everyone is alive, it starts at 30 seconds. So this bin roll is 30 seconds, right? Because like if none of these are true, it goes through all these conditions, and if none of them are true, then it's gonna go to 0. It's going to multiply this 10 by 0, and it'll add it to this 30, and nothing happens in the wave interval. Oh yes, there is a mutator that can also count how many iron wills exist, how many iron wills the team has left. I haven't messed around with it personally, but yes, that is something that does exist in CD2. You can change parameters based on how many iron wills are remaining. So, again, basically, let me quickly explain this. So, if no dwarf is down, this like main mission interval is 30 seconds, right? If one dwarf is down, it adds 10 seconds, so now it becomes 40-second interval. If two dwarfs are down, it's going to do 1.5 times 10, so you get, I'm excellent at mental math. It turns to a 45-second interval. If three dwarfs are down, 1.75 times 130. So you have a nice let's see. Let me do the math. So you get like a 47.5 second interval down, and if no one is down, then you just leave by default. So that's an example of how that can work. You have to do the same thing for the max if you want the same values, and otherwise. Are CD2 meters documented anywhere? Unfortunately, no. There's hold on. There's this very rudimentary list that Brain made, but there is no official documentation yet. So basically, if you want knowledge, you just have to ask Brain yourself, which is unfortunate, but it's what we gotta do for now. Let's see. Ooh, enemy diversity. This is an extremely important thing you want to. This is very sensitive. What enemy diversity means is like. So, you roll a spawn event, right? Say it's like a wave within a swarm, or a normal wave, or a constant pressure wave, just any sort of spawn event. What's gonna happen is the game is going to the game will have to select how many different enemy descriptors being like enemies the game is going to spawn in. And it does so by using enemy diversity. In 6x2, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure. I think I might have modified this, but this should be close to what's typically in 6x2. Like, what this means is that there is a 20% chance to roll for the game to select 4 types of enemies to spawn in a spawn event, or an 80% chance for 6 types of enemies to spawn in a spawn event. And you can get a little crazier with this. Like, for example, in FC, this is the enemy diversity array. Like, you have also. This is one way you can get high enemy variability. This is one of the pieces to getting high enemy variability in your difficulty. By like having all sorts of bins. By having a wide sort of bin. So like you can have low diversity from like, 22% chance 1 to 3. Then you get like, 4 to 6 as like what's typically rolled. Then you have this other bin, 23%, 7 to 10 bins. And then, or you can get exactly one descriptor selected to spawn in. Now, you want pretty much you typically want, what I typically found is if you want a wave that's like, your standard like diversity is, what I've found through experience is 46. This is like a nice healthy enemy diversity for like a spawn event, because like low diversity waves or high diversity waves are very, very dangerous typically, especially if you're adding all sorts of different enemies, because high diversity waves means like you have all sorts of different threats all compounding on top of each other, which just creates this ungodly mess that can basically be a team insta kill if this tends to happen way too often, especially if the enemies you're adding are very dangerous. Like, let me find L by 2EX, because I think that's a prime example of what happens when enemy diversity is a bit absurd. Like, the main bin, 33%, 9 to 12. That's already not very good, because, well, that's a lot of different enemies that can show up in a given wave. And not only that, I'll get to it later on, but the types of enemies that are added in L2EX are very dangerous. Like, say, you got your fast bulks, you have Nemesis, you have Crashes, you have all sorts of weird random shit that just, and put all those together spawning all at once, it's like basically you're throwing the entire kitchen sink at the team, and you're just yelling "fuck you" at them, and then they just die. Which personally, I've decided no, that's not the kind of difficulty I want to make these days. The same is also true if you roll a low diversity bin, and then suddenly the ceiling is just acid spitters. So you gotta be careful with that. Like it's these low diversity waves tend to be extremely dangerous, especially if you roll a wave that if the one of the descriptors that's selected has a pretty high max spawn count, so which means a lot of it can spawn, is allowed to spawn. This does also mean in certain scenarios, like sometimes you roll a low diversity wave and all you get is 4 stingtails or a single crabber or 4 goobers, which is very funny when it happens at times. But yeah, you want to be careful with these two. So that's enemy diversity. Very important parameter that I do not like to that I like to set and forget unless something is very wrong, because it's very sensitive for. Because again, like I hope I make it clear, low diversity or super diversity waves, as I like to call them, can easily screw over a team and make the difficulty way too variable. Alright, so stationary enemy diversity. I'm pretty sure stationary enemy diversity, it works the same as enemy diversity, just for stationary enemies. And well, I typically set stationary enemy diversity as the same as how many stationaries that exist in the pool, because you want all stationary, at least one of every stationary to try and spawn in the room. No, that's what happens. Oh, speaking of, there's something important I forgot to gloss over. Typically, you roll encounter difficulty and stationary difficulty for a room once for, like, say, mining mission. However, I have noticed in like salvage missions, these get rolled multiple times. And by extension, enemy diversity and stationary enemy diversity also gets rolled multiple times for each time encounter difficulty and stationary difficulty rolls. And this is my assumption on why that is the case. My assumption is that a salvage room is so big that it rolls multiple times. That is why I think that happens. Is it correct? I don't know. I'm not sure. But that's what I've noticed in practice. That encounter difficulty and stationary difficulty roll multiple times, which is why in like salvage rooms you get just ungodly amounts of shit at times. Speaking of, just because an enemy is selected to be rolled as part of a spawn event, it's not guaranteed that it'll spawn in, because there are some other controls. There are some other things that enemy descriptors are dependent on before to spawn in. We'll get to that later. Veteran normal. So, veteran normal is the chance, by default, veteran normal is the probability that a grunt, a glyphid grunt, or a Moctera spawn will promote into their veteran variants. For grunts, the veteran variants are, guards and slashers. For Moctera, the veteran variants are brundles and trijaws. However, something funny about trijaws is that they are by default in the pool already, so that's a little quirk to keep in mind. And I think it should be reasonably clear to see that the more guards, slashers, brundles, and trijaws you add in a difficulty, the harder it's gonna be. Like, I don't think you want, like, this is the value that's used in 6x2, for example. This is what's used in FC. Very high stationary enemy diversity because there's a lot of stationaries added in FC. But here, let's see, veteran normal. 90% of the time, you get a nice amount of bugs. Pretty much personally, in my experience, what I found that if you set your most common bin to have like a max of like 90%, that's when it starts. That's like too many vets, because like, yeah, and the team just kind of just dies, basically. Because essentially what you're doing, you're making what you're basically doing, you're making your normal trash waves suddenly extremely dangerous. You should still, what I like to personally do is still keep like some, like, normal grunts, normal Moctera laying around, because again, it adds to like the overall diversity of the wave without, and you're not exactly screwing your players over by adding too much dangerous shit at once. So this is a value that you. So these are values that you can. These are values that you can mess. That you are more flexible to mess around with, but just keep in mind that you don't want too many to spawn. And then veteran large is This is specifically for um. Let me think. For Praetorians, this is specific for Praetorians. This is the probability that a Praetorian can promote into an oppressor. And this value is typically kept very low because too many oppressors in a mission it just sucks. Why? Because oppressors have a lot of HP and they do insane area denial. So, and I personally do not enjoy that. So, if you follow the same mindset as me, typically a good idea to keep the amount of oppressors down. This is the value that's used for 6. And then, so you might be wondering, yeah, exactly. Oh, if there's too many oppressors, that's also the chance of, like, you get the classic oppressor ass in the wall, and then you can't kill it because you're out of power attacks. And it just completely slows you down if you're trying to get a res off. Actually, oppressors tend to be a nightmare on refined repair phase, because, refinery uses constant pressure waves, right? And Praetorians tend to be relatively common. So because Praetorians are relatively common, there also tends to be a lot of oppressors. And all these oppressors, aggro onto all the pipes and just so much health you have to get rid of before you can actually make mission progress, which is just hell. So you might be wondering, what the hell is going on in the veteran large here? What this basically does is it controls by default, it's going to be at 0.3% veteran chance, both min and max. However, what this does specifically is going to check for two conditions. Whether it's during defense objective, so like during a black box, fuel cells, or the uplink, it's going to check for how many oppressors are. If there are one or more oppressors, it's going to prevent any more oppressors by spawn by setting the veteran large to 0, because this is because one of the features of FC is the oppressors move twice as fast. So that makes them already even so oppressors by default are already dangerous in a small enclosed space like a defense objective. Making them even faster makes them just hell. And too many oppressors in a small place, it's like what do you do, right? You kind of just die. Well, I mean, yes, there are other options you can deal with, but there are options to deal with a mass amount of other oppressors, but this is, goddammit. That's, okay, forget that thread of light. There are other options, yes, but that's not what I personally enjoy doing in my difficulties. That's not what I want to incentivize. That doesn't align with my ideals. So anyways, enough of that. So, it's gonna check during a defense objective. If there's more than one oppressors, it's gonna set the veteran large to 0. Effectively meaning oppressors can spawn in. Otherwise, it's in all other cases, it's gonna check if there are 2 or more oppressors at any given time. It's gonna prevent oppressors from spawning in. So that's what that does. And another cool thing about CD2 is that you can give enemies that don't already have veteran classes. You can define veterans for like enemies that don't have one by default. So I think there's an example of that in here. Let's see. I think it should be around here somewhere. Yeah. No, is it? No, Pentajaw. I know. What? Yeah. Yeah, it's right here. No, yeah, I got it right here. So CD2 adds these two parameters. Uses veteran large and veteran classes. So basically what this does is you can set it to if it's true, then it uses the probability. Then the probability of this descriptor promoting into its defined veteran classes will depend on veteran large. If it's set to false, then it will use veteran normal. And then you define its veteran classes here in an array. So like for example, this is a tri-jaw right here. Noctera's triple shooter. So here is that so I gave it a veteran class of a pentajaw. It's basically a tri. It's just think tri-jaw, but instead of 3 shots, it shoots 5 shots. So you just veteran true, right? So we go all the way back up here. So you have so basically what that means is the side effect that it's also dependent on how many oppressors exist on the map, but that's something I'm willing to deal with. So basically, you have in most scenarios you have a 30% chance of that tri-jaw spawning it turning into a pentajaw. So that's that. Environmental damage modifier. I don't know if this does anything. Let me see. The CD1 does the CD1 guide say it? Okay. According to the CD1 guide, this doesn't really do much. Me, I have not exactly messed much with this either. So I just ignore it completely and just leave it on the default value. Can't say much there. Port extraction scaler. Let's see. I think I already mentioned earlier. This does something with point extraction. I would suggest just reading the CD1 guide about this. Supposedly, according to AJ, it also increases the amount of bugs during refinery phase, so I don't know. I have not messed with that myself, so not sure.
I remember it also affects dreadnoughts. Like it can spawn hazard 3 or hazard 4, I think. No, only hazard 3 below because of this point extraction scaler.
I see.
It has to be 0.9 or below.
Right. Okay. Alright, let's continue. Friendly fire modifier. I think this is also self-explanatory. This is how much percentage of your damage gets becomes if you shoot a teammate, how much of that damage becomes friendly fire? And I think each weapon also has its own friendly fire modifier. I'm not too sure. I think that's the case, but basically, bigger number, bigger friendly fire modifier, more damage your teammates will take. It's useful for making sure. It's just a nice little check to make sure your teammates aren't trying to kill each other or being careless. It's nice. In the funny thing in FC, I use 1.1 because why? Because I believe in the original Hazard 7 mod, this was friendly fire modifier was kept at 110%. I believe that is the case, and it just stuck around. I like it. So, there's that. Wave start delay scale. This is just I believe like lower hazards have this, like hazard 2, 3, 4, hazard 2 and 3. I think what this does, I'm not too. Wait. Alright, actually, I haven't really messed around with this, so I'm not too sure what this does exactly, but I think what it does is, well, it prevents the swarm. It adds a sort of delay to like the swarm timer from counting down. So like I believe like if you do like say you add 10 seconds, then it'll be a 10-second delay before the for into whatever you rolled for the swarm timer will actually, for enemy wave interval, the swarm timer will start counting down. If you set it at a negative number, you will 100% guaranteed get an instant swarm, get an instant announced swarm. So that's not something that's been noticed by Brain. So, anyways, so speed modifier. This is how many bugs that. This is how fast. Not how many. This is how fast bugs move. I stick with the default hazard 6 and hazard 7 values because these are very sensitive. And also, besides, if you want to make specific bugs move faster, you can do that yourself via not pawn stats, the movement mods of her specific enemies. So this is the value for hazard 6, it's 1.25. In hazard 7, which is what FC uses, it's 1.35. Typically, I don't want to mess around with this because I don't think you want bugs that just teleport at you. Yes, I know, AJ. Your difficulty does use an absurd speed modifier. Me personally, I like, unless you're doing something crazy, I like to stick with predefined values for like same reasoning as before. These are well tested values that I just do not want to mess with. Like, and the thing is, speed modifier does not affect how fast enemies turn. So like, if you set this to an absurdly high number without doing anything else to your enemies, they're gonna move stupidly fast in a straight line, but their turn speed is still going to be slow, which allows you to like just jump in circles around them to dodge them. So that's what that does. So now, enemy attack cooldown modifier. This is just how frequent, like, this is the interval in between. I have only really noticed this be matter for grunts. Like, I am unsure if it does stuff for like how frequent mutators shoot, or like how often a Praetorian spits, but like I mainly notice this via grunt attacks, and it does cap out at some point where it's just limited by the animation of a grunt attacking itself, because you can get the interval, the actual interval, the pause in between a grunt doing its animation to attack. There's a pause, and the grunt does another animation to attack you. There is a limit if you set this at the. It does cap out if you set this to some absurd value. It'll be limited by the animation itself. So, this is another value that I don't exactly mess around with because it caps out. So, this is using hazard 7 value. So, it's hazard 7. It's 2 in hazard 7. It's hazard 6 in 1.75. Projectile speed modifier. The funny thing is, these two are actually the same across hazard 6 and hazard 7. Like, hazard 6 and hazard 7 does not have the same projectile speed. And now, this is also something that is extremely sensitive, and I do not want to change at all. Why? Because this is extremely noticeable. Increasing enemy projectile speed is extremely noticeable on clients. So, I don't think you want to make things undodgeable for your clients. So, that is why I have not touched that at all. And it's also making it slower, even by a small amount, is also very noticeable. So, you want to be careful with this value. And so, something that FC does specifically is affect the amount of health that the amount of health that you revive with. By default in 6x2, it's gonna use hazard 5 value. So maybe just copy this over. So like for example, like this is the equivalent if in the 6x2 value you revive with only 10% of your HP. Now, the reason why I increase the why in FC I increase these health values, so to make sure to be more specific, revive health ratio is how much health you revive with in after you get revived. So like you revive to 40% HP here, and then health regen is like how much health you will automatically regenerate to if you don't take any damage. Wait a second though. Where? So wait. I do believe there was. Didn't I change? Then there's something I did on revive health rate or something. Where'd it go? Did it not get carried over? Oh yeah, that's strange because I swear it was in here somewhere. Wait, I definitely. Okay, okay, I'm going crazy. Hold on, it was somewhere around there. I swear. I I definitely know it's in grunts. Hold on. Wait, hold. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's all the way up here. That's where you control it, right? That's where it is. Okay. So basically, wait, let's go back. Let me hold on. Let me just take a break from talking for a moment. Let me catch my breath. Okay, I hope I should be good. Have to keep going for a bit longer. Okay. The reason why I have I increase these in like hard because you think like, oh, why am I making it easier? Because you have more health when you revive, right? And you also even regen that health up to a higher amount. Like you have a lower or minimum health if you don't take enough damage. I don't. I this is to prevent chain dying, right? Because this also allows you. Yeah, exactly. I do not want people to just keep the difficult. I find that the difficulty can be made hard enough in other ways. Exactly. Like I don't want people to like wake up, their breathing room ends, instantly hit by one thing, die instantly. Like this, that's what the extra health does. It prevents extreme chain dying. And and yes, especially in these harder difficulties, chain dying is already getting a res off in the harder difficulties I make is already extremely difficult. So like the fact that you still have low health right after you get right after you so having a little bit of extra breathing room when you get res makes tends to make the experience a bit more enjoyable. Oh yes, yeah. The thing is the thing I have noticed that it does regenerate. If you get health during Iron Will, it does regenerate. Like let me show you. Like basically when I added this, thing, um, I noticed that if you get vampire with iron health, you're not gonna just be stuck with like, oh, I have 5 health because I vampire. I only have 5 health because of the vampire I got, and now I'm just gonna instantly die right after I Iron Will, right? After you get health, it's gonna follow this logic and just regen into HP. Yeah, the same the same line of thinking applies to why I added this. Um, why I added these two parameters up here. Like, I don't exactly find it enjoyable that that you just sit at low that you sit at low HP at um that you just can just get one shot, like if I say some random thing. So you will always have like, so even if you get chunked pretty low, if you don't take damage for long enough, you will regen to like a still somewhat low amount of health, but it's not like, oh, you just get one shot. Now the fucked up thing is like with Hazard 7 damage scaling and how acid spitters are work, like this still isn't enough to even if you have full shield, even if you have full shield and like the 40% revive health, you can still get one shot by an acid spitter. Depending on both, depending on like because something about yes or soccer, yeah. Because the annoying thing about acid spitters is like when they shoot you, the DOT that they so not only you have the direct damage, the direct hit of the acid shot itself, you have the DOT that they deal, and that DOT is either 2 or 3. Is like it can either tick 2 or 3 times. So it's really just annoying that you just die sometimes with that. Even if you have additional health, you just die randomly sometimes because it decides to take 3 instead of 2 times only. So that is unfortunate. So hey, anyway, big summary. Do this if you want to prevent chain dying. It's I personally think very good. Oh, DOT, damage over time. That's what I mean. Okay. Okay, so pools. So the pools are basically how you can add stuff to how you add enemies to your difficulty. You can also dynamically change them. Min pool size. This is just how big your pool is going to be. That's you. If you want every single enemy you add to your difficulty, because you can add more descriptors than your min pool size. Like you can have, let's say you have 50 descriptors and your min pool size is 30. So, and basically you can like control how many types of what exactly you want added to your difficulty based on like rolling disruptive enemy pool count and like stationary enemy count here. Because like these pretty much this is the pools are unrelated to like enemy diversity in spawn events. This is considered at a start of a mission, or I mean dynamically now because it's a CD2. But this is something very important to keep in mind. These are separate from enemy diversity because enemy diversity is rolled every single time for a spawn event. These two, like and disruptive enemy pool count, stationary enemy pool count, are rolled at the start of a mission. And enemy diversity draws from like the enemy pool, which is typically made at the start of a mission. However, it can also be changed on certain conditions. Like, well, I really should find that thing Brain made about spawn mechanics. It goes over a lot of technical detail, which is very useful for extra reading if you're into that. Let me find it. Do I have it saved here? Oh god, where is it? Hold on, where? That's not it. That is a no. God, where is it exactly? Did I really not save it? Okay, whatever. I think I know where to find it. Hold on, give me a moment. Let's see. Thread. Yeah, found it. Okay. This is extremely technical detail on spawn mechanics. I highly recommend I do not know the exact technical details of everything. Like I just have a basic I just have the general basic idea. I just know what I need to know for making difficulties. But if you want like a lot more details, check out that thread. It's very good. I posted it in like the voice channel chat here. So now back to the pools. Enemy pool. Like this is it's left alone in 6x2 because it's just using it does not adding any new enemies or whatever and it's just using whatever in by default. I there is also another chart somewhere that explains what is in each pool by default. So like say oh god. Now I now oh my god. Now I have to find that pool. Now I have to find that image. God damn it. Let's see. It's somewhere around here. Now. Now. Now this image is outdated because you know it doesn't have season 4 and season 5 enemies. But let me make sure. But it is accurate. Okay, for some reason it's okay. It's missing breeders in the stationary pool for some reason. But this is and normal should be renamed to common enemy pool. That's what they are. That's what that is. So those are the pools, right? And typically, and in my own case, because I just slap everything in the same pool and I'm spawning everything in, I don't really pay attention to it too much. But you can read the CD1 guide and use this as a reference to keep that in mind. It's just something to keep in mind. So, and I believe, okay, if you want season 5 enemies, I believe Stingtails and Stalkers are in the disruptive pool, and Septics are in the special pool, and of course, Barragers and Brambles are in the stationary pool that exists. Well, there's not much to look at here because it's just default values for 6x2. We need to take a look at FC to do the interesting stuff. So, as you see, I don't really care for pools, for like organizing stuff into separate pools, so I just throw everything in the enemy pool. Yeah, this is also I think this is also the best way to do. Supposedly, according to Brain, this is how you like dynamically change what can be drawn for like spawn events too. Yeah, it's a lot of enemies. You can really just add whatever the hell you want, and you can also add or remove whatever you want based on certain conditions. So like for example, this entire entry here. So it's going to this is going to check if it's like a defense objective again, like say uplink black box, uplink fuel cells or black box. Then if it's doing the defense objective. Wait what? Wait, what the hell? Wait, that's supposed to be removed. No, that is fine. Yeah, that's fine actually. That this enemy will be added in. Else, so you could check that if it's doing a defense object, then only this will be added in. Else, then it's going to check by mission type. By default, on all other mission types are not explicitly defined, these two descriptors will be added in. However, on escort, it will not be added in. These enemies will not be added into the pool. So basically, if you have a certain enemy that's way too fucked up for like certain scenarios, that's how you can get rid of them. Then a bunch of other random ass enemies I've added in the FC difficulty. Remove. Okay, I have my own custom shark descriptor, so I believe this is why this is here. And then you have no, wait, this is because I want sharks to spawn globally. So I made up my own descriptor. Certain descriptors like say younglings and shellbacks have restrictions on where they can spawn. So like shellbacks can spawn everywhere except for salt pits and sandblasted, I believe. Younglings only spawn in salt pits, and sharks only spawn in sandblasted, I believe. So what you can do to get around that is that if you want those enemies to spawn globally, you remove the default descriptor from the pool, and you make up your own and add it into the pool yourself. Do I do that here? Not sure. What the hell? Oh no, yeah I do. I made my own shark descriptor, so I removed the default shark descriptor. Oh no, don't do that. And I made up my own shark global. So there's that. And then I think this is just in case. Cuz like if this thing fails for some reason, then I really make sure to remove these big bulks during a defensive takeover. I'm not sure if this is needed, but it's just there just in case. Stationary pool, this is same vibes. I add all the stationaries I want, all the custom stationaries I want here. Depending on the biome, I add even more styrovines. I do not add styrovines to the stationary pool in Hollow Bow because Hollow Bow already has enough styrovines. Remove. Yeah, then I just remove. And then I remove brambles and escort. Now, why do I remove brambles and escort? Because the way brambles work is that they are extremely punishing to push into. Like, you have to pace how you push into them exactly. And you have to be very careful with how you pace into them exactly. On the lower difficulty, that's fine. But on something like FC where there's all sorts of other stations in the way to get to their nodes, that makes them extremely dangerous. And you compound that with escort where you're kind of forced to follow the dozer. So it was decided that it would be best to not have brambles at all on an escort mission. Though, no, wait. Actually, you do have brambles on an escort mission. However, the way I set it up, let me skip ahead here. Look past this massive difficulty file. I have it set up that they're a special counter where that it's turned off for all other missions except escort. So specifically at escort, only one bramble can spawn in the entire map. So it's not like every single breach you run into a bramble. Anyway, so that's that spiel dealt with. Fucking massive difficulty file. Oh god. So this is the fun part, the enemies module. This is where you can go absolutely crazy and modify all the enemy descriptors you want in the game. You can make custom enemy, you can modify existing enemies in the game, or you can use mods like MEV to add them in and modify them to your liking. This personally is my favorite way of adding difficulty because in my view, there's only so much you can do by just let's add more bugs. Let's increase the enemy count modifier. Let's make the timers faster. Let's have bugs deal more health. Let's have bugs have more health, deal more damage, move faster. There's only so much you can do with that. What I personally enjoy is just adding bugs that normally don't appear in usual scenarios and adding high diversity amounts of them. Like, if you want someone to think for the idea, think Brain, because Brain is the first one who did such a thing when they made 6x2 Diablo. Like, 6x2 Diablo is like the framework I used for all my difficulties. That's how I realized, hey, enemy diversity is actually pretty fun, and so I just went absolutely crazy with it. So, very important difficulty that Diablo is. So, there is a lot of stuff you can do here. 6x2, just ignore this. This is for myself. This is not part of the default 6x2 value. This is not part of the default 6x2 values. This is just whatever. So that's normally gone in the default 6x2 value. We need something like FC to talk about this ungodly mess of lines. How many lines of code is this? So this is, so start at 380. Start at 388. Alright. 388. Oh fuck. That is over 1,000 lines of code right there. My god. Okay. Okay. Yeah, exactly. No, the funny thing is, like, a lot of this was typed in game because ND is a CD1 difficulty. And so, like, yeah. Let's look at the ND file. Oh my god. See, though, ND has more. Though the CD2 version of ND has more because it has additional stuff. Let's see. Oh, dear lord. My god. That is a lot of text. That is a lot of text. Jesus Christ. So yeah, this is another reason why you should get a dedicated code editor like VS Code, because this is the absolute insanity you can go to. Aye. So let me find a good descriptor I can use as an example for like controlling. Let me find a good example that has like a lot of parameters. Okay, I know, like bundle. All right, let's start with this one. So a bundle is basically a fat brundle. Why? It's funny. That is the only reason why I added it. This is difficult because it's funny. Okay, so anyways, so the base. The base of an enemy is what you're gonna start as a reference. So a bundle uses a brundle as a reference. You do not have to define the base if the name of the descriptor is the same. So like for example, here, ED Cave Leech. The base is also named ED Cave Leech, so I don't have to specify that. So I don't have to specify its base because it's gonna automatic, because CD2 will know that I'm not messing around with the base. It's just the default entity itself. In CD1, you had to always specify the base. In CD2, you don't have to anymore, which is nice. So I'm telling this enemy descriptor is based off a brundle. Can be used for constant pressure. This just means whether you can see it in constant pressure, like refined repair phases, point extraction, other parts of the game that can be used in encounters. Well, can this enemy show up as like an encounter when you first walk into a room, like on a mining mission or a salvage? It takes true or false. Difficulty rating is how much a bug costs to spawn. So like, let's say you roll enemy diversity 1, right? And then ignore max spawn count for a moment. Ignore this for a moment. Let's say you roll like a difficulty, that difficulty gets multiplied by your enemy count modifier, and then you have a total difficulty of 800. So, and the difficulty rating is 8. So that would mean, you can have 10 bundles can spawn. That's how much. So yeah, that's how much it costs. Display name. This is basically like what the name that you see when you hover your mouse over it, like when you're fighting it. Materials. This is one of the greatest things of CD2. You can change how enemies look. Like there's a whole ass material guide that I'm just gonna link to because it's because that explains it much better than I can. Oh god, where is it? Or it's somewhere here. It's somewhere lost in my files. Okay, there you go. Materials PDF. Yeah, Brain made this guide too. It tells you how exactly the material changing stuff works. So very nice, very convenient. Okay. Let's no, don't do that. Let's get out of here. Don't close there. Right. So I suppose, but oh wait, I don't. Well, I guess you could go ask someone later on. Do that. So, anyways, back to this. Materials module is materials module. You can change how enemies look. Very good. Max spawn count. Um, let's see. Max spawn count is, well, it limits how many bugs that spawn in. So even if, like, say this bundle got like 8 million points, the maximum amount of bundles I can spawn in the spawn event is 4. Now, you might be wondering, why did I say 4 instead of 3? Because there is a very interesting quirk with max spawn count. You see, this is really the maximum amount of bugs that can spawn in a spawn event is really the max spawn count plus 1, because, well, for some reason, if you roll excess points, like say, so we have the, again, back to the bundle. So say we get 240 points allocated to this bundle, right? So it's gonna spawn 3, right? So it's gonna spawn 3. However, if we got 320 points, so 80 times 4, or allocated to the bundle descriptor, then it'll spawn 4. I don't know why this is a thing, but this is just a quirk of. This is not CD2. This is just the difficulty. This is just how DRG itself works. Like, it just happens. Why? I don't know. Min spawn count. So that. However, if you got 300 points instead of 320, then you'd only still have 3. Then you'd still only have like 3 bundles spawned instead of 4, because you only have enough to spawn 3 bundles in. Min spawn count. This, always set it to 1. For the love of God, do not set it to anything other than 1, because Joe tested this, and this something very extremely strange things happen with this, where it just ignores max spawn count. So let's say, and this is a suspected reason why in salt pits an ungodly amount of younglings spawn in. Let me find the descriptor. Yeah, by default, the max spawn count of younglings is 2. And the max spawn count of a youngling is 4. However, I'm pretty sure if you've played 6x2 or any of the modded difficulties around here, maybe even in vanilla, that's not how many younglings that can show up. Sometimes you get 5,000 of them spawning at once. It's just, why? Why? Not literally 5,000, but you get some ridiculous excessive amount for some reason. Oh, no. They are supposed to be capped, but because their min spawn count is not set at 1, this allows for some very strange behaviors where the max spawn count is ignored. So lesson of the day: for the love of God, do not change this from 1. Just do not. It's terrible. It's very bad for your health if you set it under 1. Rarity. So the rarity. So rarity of a descriptor is the probability of it being selected in a diversity event. So again, if you want the whole exact details of it all, go check the thread I linked about spawn mechanics. So basically, this controls is, to simply put it, the probability of an enemy's this controls the probability of an enemy being selected to spawn in. Though do keep in mind, just because an enemy is selected to spawn in doesn't always guarantee that it will spawn in. Because, sometimes not enough points are allocated to it. And essentially, larger rarity number means rare, lower rarity number means it's more common. And how do you decide on a good rarity? A lot of playtesting. You just have to play, hypothetically, you could do some math and just do some annoying probability statistics math to figure out exactly what you want. But me, what I do personally, I just playtest the living hell of my difficulties and just understand the feel of, and just get a feel on whether something is too common or too rare. Just a lot of time playtesting, really. Same for difficulty rating, whether you figure out if there's too many or too little spawning. Same for this too. Resistances. Okay. This is how you can change. This is how you can change how much damage something takes. This is how I change how much health something has effectively. So smaller damage multiplier means thing effectively has more health. I think of this as a health multiplier, because it's base health divided by damage multiplier is how this works. So if I want if I want this to take double damage, I just set it to 2, because it'll be the base health of the enemy times the difficult times the enemy resistance as determined earlier, way earlier in the file, divided by 2. That's how that's calculated. And then pretty much personally, I like trying to set the HPs of enemies to real breakpoints. I try to base them off of existing enemies. Say, I'm not sure if this bundle has is an enemy that has a breakpoint counterpart, but usually but I do like to use the Brundle HP. I like to use the amount of HP a Brundle has as a common enemy HP for if I want to make something that's somewhat tanky. That's just me though. You can do whatever. Scale, that's how big you can make your enemies. So say for example, I can make it 10 times bigger. I can either make it 10 times bigger, or I can make it very small. It's very funny seeing it in person. It's nice. This was in CD1, however, it doesn't sync properly. So that's why you don't really see scale being used in CD1 difficulties. So now, let's see. Spawn amount modifier. This is also a very funny value that's requires a lot of testing. Again, the spawn mechanics thread I linked goes over a lot about it, but it does some really annoying math, so let's not think about that. The basic idea is, this is how many points gets allocated to the descriptor relative to other descriptors. So what I like to do is I just leave everything at 1 by default, and if I want something to get more or less points relative to all the other descriptors, I just do 0.5 or set it to 0.5 or 0.2. So that's how that works. So basically what you can say, because once you're once the game calculates how much difficulty you have for a spawn event, right? And once it selects the what descriptors are going to be selected in said spawn event by following enemy diversity and selecting based on their rarities. It's going to determine how the points are allocated, how the points are allocated based on them. So like say, so if they're all, so if all the descriptors in like this hypothetical spawn event are at 1, then there's no like modifier. They're just gonna get, and there's no like additional weight. They're just gonna get like some random amount of points, relative to each other. They're gonna get the same amount of points relative to each other. Not exactly the same amount of points, but it's not going to be divvied up exactly equal, but it's going to be like truly random. True random like bounce. I hope that makes sense. But if I say I had three descriptors I rolled, and one of them had a small amount of modifier of like say 0.5, that means relative to all the descriptors with spawn amount modifier of 1, the descriptor with spawn amount modifier of 0.5 will get half as many points compared to those other descriptors. And the thing is, this also means that this descriptor will get less points, but the points that this descriptor does not receive will go to all the other descriptors. So this is a way to modify wave composition in your difficulties. And how do you figure that? How do you figure out what a good wave composition is? A lot of playtesting again. You could do math, but I prefer playtesting. And just going off by feel. Yeah. That is a lot. Okay, let's see if there's anything else interesting in here. Time dilation. That is a good question. I'll get to that very soon. So again, like basically these tend to be the most important values when you're making ED. What I've got highlighted. These are what I always like to define first, and then I do like other stuff like health, scale, time dilation, whatnot. So time dilation is changing how fast does time move for an enemy. So for example, I have fast cave leeches. So a time dilation of 2 means the cave leech moves twice as fast. It's going to attack twice as fast. It's going to re-grab you twice as fast. This also applies to enemies. It's going to let's say you make a bulk. Oh, let's pull up the classic L/2 EX bulk, right? Okay, it's using movement. Okay, I need a CD1 file actually. Hold on. Do I have? I do have CD1 saved here around here. Main. Oh god. No, I don't use time dilation here. Goddamn, never mind. Okay, point is moot. Ignore that. Whoops. Okay. Anyways, let's get back here. So like, you can think of time dilation as a nuclear option of making an enemy move, attack, and behave twice as fast. Essentially, time passes twice as fast. Conversely, you could also slow down enemy. So I can make a leech move, grab, and attack you half as slow. But however, yeah, basically that's what happens if you use time dilation on a stupidly. If you make a bulk stupidly fast, it's going to when it slams, it's going to be in an instant and you just die. Which, no, I'm not dealing with that. So if you want to make something move faster, you use the movement module. So you just do that too. Oh right, spawn spread. I will get to that. But first of all, hold on. Oh, let me. I gotta do something real quick. Hold on. Right. Okay, I'm back. So that's what time dilation. Yeah, we left off time dilation. I'll get to spawn spread later. Another thing about CD2 is that for certain enemies, there are some control. Some enemies have specific controls, like cave leeches. So, so for example, what this does is like, you know how normally, if you get grabbed by a cave leech, and if you get grabbed by a cave leech that's high enough, and then it drops you, it just kills you, right? What this does is like, once the cave leech is dead, it's not going to. What it does is that it's not going to instantly drop you. Instead, it's going to low. What this does, it's gonna start lowering you for a maximum of 10, for up to 10 seconds. So like, this should cover if you like get grabbed by a high ceiling, you aren't like just dead from fall damage if your teammate frees you. This is what this prevents. Very useful. Like, there's a bunch of other max grab duration. Um, okay, I think Brain. Let me check. Cause I think Brain wrote that down somewhere. Let me find it. Where's the cave leech controls? Brain put this down. What the? Okay, no, it's formatted terribly, but let me hold on. Let me just save. Oh god. There there you go. There's that. Yeah. There's bite damage, bites for damage. Grab delay. Yes, the game has, I think it's now known that the DRG code has a lot of typos in. Whatever. Grab delay, tentacle speed, tentacle drop speed, max player drop duration, revive grace period. Okay, this it does not seem there's a max grab duration, so can't do that unfortunately. So yeah, certain enemies. So more most important point, certain enemies in CD2 have specialized controls. Like for example, the cave, the fat leech. What the fat leech basically is a leech that's slower than average in FC. That's compared to like the times two speed that these leeches have. So they only move half as fast, which is normal leech speed. However, to make up for that, they have an absurd grab what I did here is make them horizontal, which is an extremely hilarious thing to see in person. And it's just a different kind of threat that's added. Alright, let's see. So let me see if there's any other interesting examples I can do here for let's see. Fat cave leech, drone breeder. Oh, the movement module. Can it grab you through walls? No, no. Actually, I've not exactly been because in my experience at least, it only reaches if you actually have line of sight to it. Like, yeah, sometimes like if you make the leech faster, then you get the whole wonky. It's gonna try to grab you through the walls thing, because it's the tentacles just going to be flapping around everywhere. But otherwise, so no, it has not tried to grab. It has not tried to grab people out of bounds so far. No, thank God. So the other important thing for the movement module is of enemy descriptors. I mean, is a movement module. This is how you can fine tune an enemy descriptor's movement. Like, so let me just quickly explain what all of these does. Align to direction speed. That's the turn speed. Align to target min required angle. I don't know what that is. I just leave it alone. Max acceleration. I hope that should be self-explanatory. That's how fast the um bug can speed up and slow down. Max braking deceleration. That's slowing down. This is speeding up. Max spawn speed. This is straight line speed. Max strafe distance. So I think this is when. Oops! Don't mess up the window. Didn't break my OBS, right? Yeah, we're good. So max strafe distance is how well I think that's also self-explanatory. Strafe speed, that's also self-explanatory. You can modify this to like be 0, 1, some huge number, whatever. Or if you want certain very useful for because certain enemies tend to be extremely oppressive if they're left at normal speed, especially with like the already pre-existing like 107 speed I have, for example, in FC with the speed modifier of 1.35. So what you can do here is specifically slow down certain enemies. It's like for example, this is an explorer that spawns from an egg, and this is I do the same thing for like explorers that spawn from breeders. They they're slower, so they're not like extremely oppressive and just farming you forever, and you get stuck and die. Let's see, anything else of note here? Oh, I suppose I should expand on resistances. There is an entire list of resistances you can explain that there's listed too. Maybe I can't find that. No, these are the values that like the resistances module takes. I'm pretty sure. It's just based on like the different types of damage that exist in the game. So there's that. I do believe I do have a specific example where I use one of the elemental resistances. Yeah, basically pod stats. That's a stand-in for. Um, Grabbers also have their own controls. So this is what I did. Effect. These are not the default. These are not the default values of the grabbers. So yeah, these grabbers move fast. Specifically, I believe the grabbers in my difficulties move 1.5 times faster. Like 50% faster, yes. Let's see. No, elite. No. That's not elite grabber speed. Elite grabber speed is times 3 or times 5. I'm only 50% fat. Like, let me check the wiki actually. Because it does say that, I'm pretty sure. Okay, no. No. Okay, no. It does not say in the wiki, but I am pretty sure I remember reading that it was either times 3 or times 5 faster. Okay. Alright, yeah. Alright, split got it. It's times 5. Yeah, it's. Why? Why is that a thing? 50% is already pretty dicey. So, yeah. Pretty fast. I can find like the default values for a grabber somewhere around here. Brain also has it laying around here. Got that word. Where is it? Found it. Okay. Yep. Right. Yeah. elite grabbers are a decision that were made, but that is why I don't use elite grabbers for my difficulties because I think being grabbed and just teleported away is not ideal with game design, in my own opinion. So you have that. Okay, spawn spread. We found an example. So when enemies spawn in, they tend to spawn away from the play. They spawn from the player. I'm not exactly sure how location is determined, but spawn points are set by the game whenever a spawn event is set, right? And what spawn spread does, it's like it increases like the radius. I believe it's the radius, specifically the radius in which an enemy can spawn from that certain location. So like, and DRG uses centimeters as you, and all the distance units are by default in centimeters. So this is like giving a grabber when they yeah exactly 50 meters, which is actually pretty important given that these things move 50 twice as fast. I don't want them to spawn too close to you because like they move very fast. However, giving an enemy spawn spread also has a side effect that it can also make enemies spawn on top of you because like if you make the radius large enough. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so spawn spread effect is basically just increases the area of their spread of the spawn location. Yes, let's explain it correctly. Okay, so you got all this other stuff here. Let's see, anything interesting? Oh, temperature controls. This is something else you can do. You can make sure you can set that something doesn't die if it's on fire, or if something doesn't die if it's frozen. So like this is a modified shocker I've made. So I took the default shockers and just modified all of them so that they're big and tanky and they don't die if they're set on fire or if they're frozen. So that's fun. That also exists for where is it? The big shredder. Yeah, right here. Die of burning? False. Let's head back. Now, do I have an example? Oh wait, I do have an example. It's just this entire CD file that was sent out. Let's get rid of some stuff. Yeah, that just means that is a big shredder and it has a lot of health. How much health it has exactly, I don't remember, but it it's nice. Temperature controls. I don't remember if it's like a breakpoint. What the hell? Yeah, I was around there. It's fine. Okay. Frozen damage bonus. Yeah, that's the type because DRG has a lot of typos. Oh, there's also this health parameter that you could use it to modify enemy health, but I don't know. It's how I've gotten used to just using damage multiplier for adjusting enemy health. So yeah, I don't know. So temperature controls. Die of frozen. Yes, that is a typo because DRG moment. That is. I'm not sure if CD2 accounts for it. Like it revives it to HP. Uses health for static health. I'm not sure actually. So I haven't really messed around with it. I have to ask Brain. So there's die of frozen, die of burning. You can set burn temperature, the temperature at which the enemies doesn't on lights there's the freeze temperature, there's unfreeze, there's a warming rate, there's cooling rate, there's max cold slowdown, there's is heat source when on fire, there's wait a sec, wait, this is already I thought this wasn't the thing yet. Turns out it is. So I could make the ultimate amplifier bug. Like, you can just make a grunt that once you set on fire, it sets the entire cave on fire. That is hilarious. No typo in DRG source files. What the hell? Okay, well. I'm gonna add. Okay, well. Brain might have done a funny then. I think. No, this is also an older. This is also like a older CD2 file, so I hope that's been fixed by now. Yeah. Temperature damage scale and then this. So those are the damage controls. I mean temperature controls that exist in CD2. Is nice. Let's see anything. Oh, this is a very good one to keep in mind. Is boss fight true? What this does, like, if you set it true for an enemy, it's gonna give it like a dreadnought health boss bar. This is extremely important if you have a dangerous enemy on the map that you want to tell the team about. So, yeah. Yes, it does not give the temperature icon, which is extremely annoying. Like, it is a very big pain in the ass to set a big bulk on fire and try to figure out whether it's on fire or not. So that is the one downside. But at least you know it exists on the map you immediately know it exists on the map if it spawns in. At least you have that. So, see anything else? I already went over this like way earlier. Fetching classes stuff. Also, remember how I said max spawn count is really max spawn count. The maximum of bugs that can spawn is this plus 1. This is why this is why you see max spawn count 0 here. And another funny quirk. If multiple enemies with max spawn count 0 are selected to spawn in a spawn event, only one of said enemies can spawn in. Why? I don't know. It's just DRG. That's the only explanation I have. No. Yeah, lots of stuff here. Oh, spawn spread is something that I can also modify. Basically, I hope the big thing that's getting through is that you can mutate basically a lot of values. A lot of goddamn values. You can use mutators with a lot of values in CD2 to have insane dynamic difficulties. So for example, this is the bulk descriptor. I keep the spawn spread very high because bulks digging and spawning from weird angles is a challenge I like. This was introduced in 6x2 Diablo. However, on Escort, having the chance for a bulk to spawn in front of the dozer, no, that's not good at all. So that's why it's set to 0 in Escort. Big bulk. Then, oh yeah, something. Oh, this is another parameter actually. Weak point HP. You can actually modify how much HP, a weak point has, so they don't like. So if you have like a huge enemy that has a lot of health, like this big bulk, you can have it that the weak points don't instantly die. Now I don't know if this directly changes the HP or if it's this HP times small enemy resistance, because apparently that's how weak point HP is calculated. And you can also see here's an example of uh big bulk piercing. It takes less damage from lead bursters, but it takes a whole lot extra damage from electricity. Mini bulks, exist, fanatic. Oh, this is something. This is something I like doing for like scrambles in my difficulties, because as I mentioned earlier, they interact. They tend to interact very badly if you already have already existing dangerous enemies on top. So I made them shoot twice as fast. So while they are still dangerous for while these brambles shoot slower effectively. They're still dangerous, but they aren't like die. They're not as oppressive as they were. So that allows me to keep like this insanity of other stationaries laying around. Shellbacks, younglings. Alright. These XED descriptors. These are just how I tell myself. These are used for specifically wave controllers, which I'm about to get to. I copied the system from Brain, really. So you have all this, right? Special encounters. Yeah. Yeah, this is the other major thing of CD2. You can have custom waves. And these can turn on based on certain conditions too. And can spawn whatever you want. So, for example, this first one right here is. So, this turns on if. Right, this turn. Yeah, this will turn on during a dreadnought fight if a certain descriptor. This descriptor is a bulk. This is a custom bulk descriptor. So if it detects there's there isn't a bulk on the map already, then it will spawn it in during a dreadnought fight. Else it'll turn off. And basically what this does is like, I don't like in elimination missions, right? So I want to speed those up as fast as possible. So what I took this idea from Brain because he did this in like he does this in Diablo 2. Like a bulk will spawn in when a dreadnought is active, so you can just use the bulk to just kill the dreadnought as quickly as possible. That's all this does. You can the basic elements of a wave controller is whether it's on or not. You can how frequent it is, what enemies you can add. If you leave this blank, like if I just do this, then it's going to follow the logic of enemy diversity and draw from the pool like a swarm or a normal wave will typically do. If you don't specify it, you can specify how much difficulty you want. You can specify how far it should spawn and how many locations that it spawns in. This is the canary. Now, the canary is something I have in my difficulties. Basically what this does, it's a giant swarmer with a boss health bar that spawns at the start of every mission. One or two will spawn. And the whole point of it is to check whether clients are experiencing desync in their difficulties. So like if a client does not see a giant swarmer with a health bar, something is wrong. CD2 is broken for them for whatever reason. Like, it's either because A, they don't have CD2, or B, they're missing like a mod like MEV or DEA. Because CD2 will freak out if it detects if for the client it detects descriptors that the client does not have. So, gotta get those mods installed. This one the so you could either do useful things. You can do useful things with wave controllers, right? So like the Dread Helper or the Canary. You could also do very funny things like just have harvesters and magma maggots spawn in the mission throughout. Like you could have like meme spawns throughout the mission without it actually affecting like without it affecting like the the normal difficult waves like swarms and normal waves. Very nice wave controller. Yeah, basically. Well, it's like the terminology. Kind of like the term. Well, wave controller is like terminology that got picked up, so that's what I say. Um, so this, or you could just another use. Yeah. So oh yeah, it does explicitly say up here too, wave spawners. So yeah, let's see. So this one, or you could also make a difficulty pretty hard. Like for example, this turns on 15 seconds into a mission, and enemies. You can have I had a choose between like three sets of enemies specifically. So a grunt, a bundle, or a mini bulk, and like each entry in the array corresponds with its weight. So like a grunt has this probability to spawn to be selected. The bundle has this probability to be selected for the wave spawner, and the mini bulk has this probability to be selected for the wave spawner. So like so basically what happens is that it's turned off in escort, but it's everywhere else it's left on. And this is why you also make custom difficulties. You make a custom descriptor so that you can configure. Oh, so you want a specific difficulty to spawn in, and then from that specific difficulty you can control like the max spawn counts of how much you want spawn. So like, say I think I just want 2 mini bulks, 3 mini bulks, 20 grunts, and then um, where's the bundle? The bundle like one bundle. That's how I deal with that. Then you have another wave controller that spawns elites. A wave spawner that spawns elites every 75 seconds. It spawns all of these. It spawns a mix of these is what it's saying. So if it's just like a straight up array without doing random choice, then it just spawns all of these. And I have this one final one. It spawns a pentajaw every 100 seconds. Rather difficult. And then the last module is for Doretta. Friendly fire modifier. I think this is how much damage gets transferred to Doretta if you shoot it. Yeah, basically spawners outside of normal waves and swarms. They're very, very useful. So, again, friendly fire modifier, 0.1. Big hit damage power. This is the important one. This is how you control Doretta resistance. So, by default, in 6x2 in every single difficulty in most difficulties I have made, this is left at 75%. Because Doretta has 0 resistance in Hazard 5, right? I'm not sure actually. But that is the explanation why Doretta is paper thin. I suggest just leaving this at 7.75 when you're making your difficulties, because it's just a healthy amount of Doretta health. It's tanky enough that Doretta can take a beating, but it's not so tanky that you can basically just do whatever you want and not worry about the dozer. And Dora's not paper thin too. So, there's good. Big hit. This, I don't know. I'm not sure what this is. And then this one, I also do not know what this is. So, because this is really the important bit. What do you want right here? And, well, Oh, you know, and that is what goes into a CD file. A lot, a lot of shit. Oh my god. How long have we been going for? Almost 3 hours. That wow. Okay, so that is a CD2 file. I'll, I hope. And so now that is quite a lot. Now, well, it's on to the question phase, but before I get to that, um, Nad asked some questions preemptively before the session, so let me get to those. So, question one, the grunt ratio. Right. Oh. So how did I end up? So really, how did I arrive at this conclusion that a grunt ratio is actually a good thing? So, it began all the way back in the L by 2 and L by 2 EX days, right? Um, you find it. Because, okay, so, as a quick side note, um, my rarities, what I like to set my rarities at, I center everything at like 5, right? And then from there, what how my rarity system works, like you can set your rarity system to whatever you want, but like how I decide to deal with it is that I set everything at 5 as like the baseline number, and I move up in increments of 1/8 in ace, so like 0.25, and so that's like the increments I like to move up in. So like make something rare, so it's like something. So I just have a general better understanding of how the rarity works instead of like having truly like all sorts of numbers, because I think that's what Brain did for Diablo. Like he has some very extremely specific numbers he used for rarity because he did some outside program thing. So there's that. And so really, and so back to this. L by 2 and L by 2x. Grunts are really about the same rarity as most of the HVTs. You think 3.5 would be enough in L by 2x, but that's not enough because there's so many other descriptors that's been added in. And the reason why I decided the grunt ratio is extremely important is that from playing L by 2 and L by 2EX, I really just started to notice that playing Driller in those difficulties is somewhat miserable. Because, Driller is for killing in grunts and whatnot. Those, because, Driller, the typical Driller, the classic Driller role, right, is kill trash. But if there's not exactly much trash laying around, then you have to pull out, and it gets very strange. Playing Driller, and high amounts of HVTs is not a good feeling too. Why? Because it is noted that too many HVTs can either be surprisingly too easy or too hard. The too hard thing should be more obvious because, well, let's say there's 5,000 spitters and menaces and bulks and menaces and whatnot, then you just get shat on by Moctera or whatever else. But if there's too little, but at the same time, if there's too many HVTs, that because grunts are really one of the most important enemies of games, because what I personally see HVTs as doing is that HVTs don't necessarily have to kill you directly. They just have to zone you and mess up your movement enough or distract you long enough so that the thing that actually kills you are grunts. You can think of grunts as like the cleanup of like DRG. Grunts kill you. Pretty much what grunts do, in my experience at least, is that they're the enemies that actually kill you because HVTs will zone you out. That's how I personally see the balance of like grunts to HVTs. And so therefore, that's why I came up with the grunt ratio. This is also, though, I should also keep in mind that when I'm the entire philosophy behind my difficulties that are being kept in, I am assuming in fire comp because that's simply what I like. I suppose I should get to that. Like, when you make a difficulty, you should have some sort of idea of what composition, what sort of baseline composition you want to balance around. Me, I use fire comp because that's simply what I like personally. Like, you could do whatever you want. There's like, you could even do like, you could even assume like, oh, there's no strict comp using. You're gonna make a difficulty for pubbing players, and so you could think about your difficulty in those lens. So, I suppose that is a disclaimer to keep in mind. Like, whenever I'm balancing my difficulties, I am primarily thinking of fire comp. So, they're just also why, like, it feels very bizarre to play driller if there's not enough grunts, because what the heck? Because you would take sticky if you're playing fire comp, and it's like, what the hell do you do if there's no grunts? So, yeah. The difficulty change on build inspector. You know, I suggested to Brain already that you as an I already suggested to Brain that a potential feature could be to change difficulty parameters based on what's added. So like, for example, if cryo bolts were to exist, then the damage multiplier of Nexus would change, but then they become unfreezable. That is, say, an example of something you could do, but that's just me. And alright, so I how did I arrive at this conclusion? Yeah, that's the explanation of why the grunt ratio existed. How did I achieve it? I just played a lot. Basically, more specifically, what I did is let me find the grunts again. For the love of God. Basically, the specific parameters I played around in are difficulty rating, spawn amount modifier, rarity, and max spawn count. So basically, what you want you want enough grunts to spawn frequently enough in relation to all the other descriptors that tend to spawn in too. So max spawn count and difficulty rate, that's just how many grunts that can show up at a given time. Rarity is like, you know, how frequently they show up. Spawn amount modifier, that's also how many points are allocated to grunts in relation to all your other descriptors. And then you have enemy diversity. Okay, what am I doing? I could just control F. Like, you also have enemy diversity that plays into the mix, because like, if you have high enemy diversity, because grunts are only one descriptor. If you have too many bins that have like higher super diversity events, then you just have grunts and then a lot of everything else in the mix. So which is why I like doing a nice decent moderate spread of enemy diversity again. And sometimes you also have waves that can sometimes roll only grunts to help keep that under control. And then something new with CD2 is that you have the wave spawners, so you can also manually add grunts with your own like little custom waves to help keep that in mind. So there's how you can do that. And pretty much, again, you just play test the living hell out of all you just keep playing and playing and playing, just asking people questions like figure out what feels right, whether it feels right or not, and then that's how you decide whether it's good. Am I satisfied with it for now? Yeah, I am. I don't pretty much though. Something I do keep in mind is that if there are every single time I add a new enemy to a difficulty, like for example for FC, I do always have in the back of the mind that if I start adding too many new descriptors, I will have to readjust the grunt descriptor again and fix the grunt ratio. So that's that answer. So next question from that was MEV and DEA. How do I choose new enemies to add? I'll be honest. I just think because I think it's either because I think it seems cool or if it's funny. That is it. Because that's my criteria. Now, of course, we play test it to make because that's the first step. Is it cool or is it funny? And then the next step is okay, if it's that, then does it actually play well? Does it actually fit in my difficulty? Like, I'll mess around with it a little bit, like seeing if how many I can get away with spawning in, or whether it even belongs in the difficulty, because sometimes enemies are a bit too because the most common reason why leading into the next question are that the enemy is way too bullshit. Like, there's always a chance that it could be skill issue, but sometimes certain enemies are absolute nonsense. Like, hold on, let me pull up that clip I have. One of the clips I have. Let's see. YouTube Studio. Where is it? Where the hell is it? You could get. Sometimes I do stuff like this, where, no, you just no, that's not how that works. Don't do that. Like, no, just no. Okay, yeah, because the general reason why enemies. So there's that. Something that just seems completely unreasonable to fight against. Like, what is unreasonable? That's up to you to decide. But for me, in my book, that's unreasonable. Because, yeah. Let's see. Let me see. Other examples of enemies I have removed. Let's see. L by 2EX is very notorious for this. An oppressor with a lot more HP. Which is... No, I think you can understand why that's a problem. Like, god enemies. There's absurd amounts of HP and just an extreme drag to kill. No. Just why? No. Then let's see. See what else I have. Let's see if there's God Sentinel. That's no. Oh, I know something that's why. Nemesis. I had a version of Nemesis where the idea of it was it just flies into the team and then just dies on top of you and then bombs are everywhere. So, the reason why this got removed is like while it does have very low HP, the fact that it moves so fast means that it could just effectively just fly right at you, grab you, and then that player dies. And the brief moment, and even if you kill the nemesis right there, and there, the brief moment of being like stun locked by the grab is extremely disorientating, and that just allows other bugs to kill you. And then not only that, the nemesis let's see, the nemesis also shit, I'm losing words. Not only the nemesis dig is also extremely disruptive with how large they carve, so having these things just spawn in huge quantities and just fly at you, destroying the map, is not ideal. And then the bombs are fun, yes, but sometimes there are just so many bombs that drop on you. It's at this point, what do? It says you die. That's the thing. And then let's see. one other example of an enemy I removed would be oh, this crashes. Yeah, this is no. This enemy it's effectively a bulk that's extremely a crashes. I took a crashes, made it move super fast, and made it resistant and I made it move super fast. It's no, that's also that also doesn't work. Oh, the fast bulk is a very good example of my personal rule. Don't add enemies that instantly kill you. I hope that is a reasonable criteria to follow. That's another. It's like yes, there are methods. There are yes, there are other methods that you could use to deal with these said enemies, but that that is not what I'm going for in my personal difficulty design. So that's why. Yeah, fast bulks. Yeah, the fast bulks are bigger. It because this was made back in the day in L by 2x, where like this was also made before MEV was a thing. So like the only way to make an enemy look different was to make it bigger, and that doesn't exactly work considering it moves at Mach speed at you. Nowadays you have CD2 to like adjust the materials of an enemy and give it eh, a boss health bar, so you can tell, oh, it spawned in, and it's pretty obvious that what's coming at you is very scary. So that's good. Let's see other. Yeah. Let's see. Again, the reason why the fast bulk moves faster was a constraint of how obvious you, which really to just make it more obvious of what's coming at you. That was the idea. Yes, it is. Yes, mini bulks do exist in FC, and it is a little harder to hit smaller weak points. Let's see. Um, let's see. Are there enemies you end up removing for difficulty? Yeah, another. I suppose the most recent example of this would be the grunt motor. Um, let's see. What am I doing? Control F exists. No, no, that's what I want. Yeah. Okay. The descriptor itself still exists in the FC file for some reason. I don't know because I'm still on the fence whether I actually want to remove it completely or add it in eventually. But basically, what this does is this is a breeder that spawns crawlers really fast, as you can see with the timeline. So basically, what it does, it spawns in during a swarm, and it just drops 3 eggs, and then it just flies away. And I think you could see the issue from there because it spawns crawl. So pretty soon you're just gonna be overwhelmed with like a flood of crawlers just after you if you don't hunt it down instantly. So maybe not my greatest decision. And I did try to make the crawlers more easier by reducing their health by a lot, I believe, but that still did work exactly. So I just removed. So I just pulled. So I just pulled this enemy from the E pool. Is there a modded corruptor? Um, I mean there is a descriptor for the corruptor, but I myself have not figured. I myself have not decided to put in the difficulty because that just I don't exactly have any ideas for what you would do with a corruptor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, deny the hold. It's probably real. Do I plan to add? more things in my CDs and replace vanilla enemies with custom ones. Basically, finish the difficulties like 6x2 EX and ND. Like, those are done. I don't really plan on adding new enemy types to those. I may make modifications to existing enemy types, but other than that, not really. Don't really plan on adding new ones. But the replacing vanilla enemies with custom ones is something I've already done. With MEV, you can replace stalkers with beta stalkers because I do not enjoy beta stalkers at all. Like, I think personally, I see stalkers in their current state as very, very unfair. But hey, that's just me. You always have the choice to revert or the beta stalker change to. You could always revert the beta stalker change to um actual life stalkers, and that's perfectly fine. Are there stinktails? Yes, I have stinktails in my difficulties. In fact, in my higher end difficulties, it's a common sight to see 4 stinktails spawn at once, which is very interesting. Let's see. And I suppose I have already modified vanilla enemies in in such a way. Like for example, with the brambles, I changed their materials and made them fire slower. In specifically in no, I've done that in my I've done that in all my difficulties actually. I've made brambles fire slower and I made them look different so they're more obvious to the eye. So that's so it's kind of replacing it with a custom enemy though. That's just modifying it. Let's see. Anything else I can think of? Nah, that's it for that, I think. Alright, how do I play testing? How do I playtest a hard custom difficulty? So yeah, essentially having a dedicated having a dedicated group to test difficulties is very very useful because you actually you exact because you have a very specific pool of people you're drawing information from. So it's very so it's you have a limited source of information that you can actually control, and you can trust those set people too because you've played for them a bit. You pick up on what they actually like, and if you have a coordinated team, it's easier to like play more ridiculous things. Yeah, difficulty testers essentially. Um, yeah. As a rule of thumb, though the thing is, because I'm working on like hard difficulties, I tend to listen to only my team and other people I know. If I'm making something more like widespread, more wide audience, then I increase the range of people I'm listening to. Like say back when I was creating 652EX, because 652EX is meant as a more approachable difficulty. So back when I was creating that, I listened to far more people. So yeah. Let's see. How do you balance things up between this is supposed to be hard and we need to have fun? Well, the thing is, something important is like, uh, with my with the difficulties I'd like to make, specifically FC at the moment, I like to try to push the envelope. So we know it is supposed to be hard, but sometimes I make a change that we just cannot figure out whether it's reasonable difficulty or it's just actually unfair where it's actually unfair or unfun for us. So basically what I tend to do is I like trying to make things I like to go in the direction of like adding adding new features bit by bit at a time so we can really figure out um, what that new addition is really doing for the difficulty. And I also like to err towards making things too hard because, in my own experience, it's easier to feel like something is too hard than to detect if something is too easy. Because, and if something does turn out, and if we do initially think something is too hard, then we could remove it. But that doesn't mean that idea is scrapped off the table forever. Like, this happens, this is always happening with FC. Like, for example, when we first added the grunt wave spawner, it was a significant spike in difficulty at first. Like, we just kept dying over and over and over again because it was a massive shift to get used to. But however, like as time passed, we got better. We managed to adapt to it and realize, oh, this is actually a reasonable addition. So that's why it's still here, and that's why we also made it a little harder by adding other stuff than just grunts, like say adding bundles, sharks, and like mini bulks to, and also elite enemies. And that's the thing. We can temporarily, if something is too hard, or and we're not having fun, we can temporarily remove it from the difficulty. And once we get better, we could try adding it back in later on to see whether our opinions have changed or not. Yeah, waveforms have a fixed cooldown. Like, let me show again. Well, you could mutate it, cause like me, I just left it at a set value, but you could mutate these if you wanted to. Can it be random? Yes. Like, you can use random choice here and just have a bunch of choices. Now, I don't know if you could do it exactly like you do like min max. X, like just like how enemy wave interval and enemy normal wave interval works, but I'm not sure if you can do that, but definitely you could get close to it by using random choice. Mutator right here. Adding new features often also requires players to build up skill set to handle them, so you need a few sessions to really figure out how to handle them. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's why I add features slowly, so that because just because I add a new feature means like the previous feature I added it in the previous version is like it's all good, it's all settled. That still needs to be in the back of our mind because eventually down the line we may actually decide like, oh, this is actually too easy, or no, this is just nonsense. We need to get rid of it. This was a thing that happened with This is the thing that happened with like the elite Moctera spawn I have in FC because we keep we keep thinking of keep going back and forth whether it's something that should be in the difficulty or not. So we just left them alone for a while, and eventually we decided, okay, what if we just give them like almost zero health, and then and then it's and then we see, and then if that still doesn't fix them, then we get rid of them entirely, and and it seems like giving them less HP has dealt with the issue of them just oh, you hear a Moctera noise, die. So hopefully that's fine. So, what metrics are involved? Okay, win rate. Win rate is not something I consider at all. Like, the only thing I consider is whether something is reasonable. Now, of course, the definition of reasonable is extremely subjective. Like, let me make it clear. I do not know anything about. I know there is some sort of. I know objective game design does exist, but I don't know anything about that. And I don't really feel like trying to restrict myself to objective ideas. I just do what people enjoy. Yeah, exactly. I simply the main metric I do is, are people enjoying this? Does it seem reasonable to them? Does it seem reasonable to me? And that's it. It's yes, it's a very I know it's a very vague subjective answer, but that really is what I do. And the way I figure out and the way I try to figure out whether something is reasonable is play it all just play a lot of it. Just get advice from my playtesters, just get advice from other people, just think about it by myself. So that really is the only metric I use. Does this seem like a reasonable addition to the difficulty? That's it. Or does it seem like can players reasonably adapt to it with like the constraints and philosophy that I have in mind for like builds and strategies and whatever? Any new project or update planned for my Cave Madness difficulties? Really? Um, FC is like the main thing I'm working on at the moment. You might have noticed that the other difficulty that I made, Infestor Grunt's Nest, hasn't really received any updates because I haven't really been working on that because that difficulty feels essentially complete to me. Like I don't want to actually say it's complete yet because oh, there's some other thing I could do to fix it that I could figure out before I actually like deem it complete. But FC really is the main goal I have been working on. This is like the peak of my K, or this is what I consider the peak of my Cave Vantage difficulties at the moment. Like FC, I haven't updated FC in a while because I feel like it's in that phase where I just have to like play a lot of it just to figure out whether I want to add more. Cause no, I do feel like I could add way more or to the difficulty, but I want to make sure what exists already is good enough. Also, I don't have many ideas, so there's that. That's why SG has received many difficulties. But in conclusion, FC is really the only difficulty I have in mind. Once I'm done with FC and Infestor Gruntsness, I don't know. I don't really think I have anything left in mind. I'm like these could unless I have some ideas that crop up. These these two difficulties are probably the last difficulties I will make for a while at least until I get new ideas. Let's see. Any other questions? Yeah, that was that's all the questions that asked. So does anyone else have any other questions? Oh yeah, or new tools. Like anything other than MEVDA, like all just new stuff. That's always fun to mess around with. So, anyways, is it handier to edit CD2 than CD1? Let's see. CD1 is a lot easier to understand. Like the skill floor for entry for CD1, I would say, is lower than CD2 because while CD2, because CD2 is just CD1, but with like all the crazy mutator stuff and syntax you can do, because there's so much more endless possibilities. Like, yes, you can, like, it is relatively easy to translate a CD1 file to CD2, because you just take all these same parameters and add them to these new modules. But the fact that there's so much more you can do with CD2 is, and knowing like there's so many more tools you can use to mess around with. I think that's like the hard part, like because like all a lot of the CD1 stuff still carries over. Yes, like knowing max spawn count, min spawn count, all still carries over. But the fact that you just have far more freedom on what you can do is like the daunting part for me. So I would say, hold on. Alright, I'm back. But yes, the fact that CD2 does not have documentation yet is not ideal. I don't know if Brain will ever make documentation. I don't know if Brain will ever make docs these days, but I think the fact that I managed to get along in making FC as far along as I have means that at least it's possible. At least. I didn't understand how encounters work. Are their mines placed as mission generation? Are they triggered by getting close? Yeah, actually, that's a good way of thinking about it. Like, pretty much. Okay, so you have let's say first you have. So you start in a mission spawn room, right? Like specifically of a mining mission or a salvage mission. Okay, so there's nothing at first. So you leave the spawn room, you go through the dirt, and you take the tunnel. As you get close, and then, yes, exactly. As you get closer to the room, and once you get close enough, that's when stationaries and encounter enemies will spawn in. So it's not like in because like in a mining mission, it's not like every single stationary encounter in the map or all rooms spawns in at once because A, they would just all despawn because the enemy cap exists, and two, even if you set the enemy cap high enough, you would just lag to death from just having a bunch of enemies just already existing far off in the distance. So yes, you could think of this as mines that spawn in once you get close enough to a room. So that's how encounters and stationaries work. And again, to re-emphasize, the difference between encounters is that encounters are just enemies that have the flag can be used in encounters as true. Stationary enemies are enemies specifically added to the stationary pool, like all this stuff here. Need rooms module. Oh yeah, huh, like oh, that would be funny actually. Like you can control the cave generation of a mission and have it spawn like the worst generation of all time, like finger caves everywhere, or yeah, that'd be funny. Right. Anything else? Any more questions? Let's see. What time are we at? Oh, for the love of God, 3 hours 30 minutes. Oh yeah, swarm triggers on certain objects would be very nice. Like, um, because there are mods that add in like, the event mugs, right? Because you walk near them, a bunch of bugs spawn on top of you. That'd be a neat thing to add. If that feature could somehow be added in CD2, that'd be nice. Like, and you could also control how many show up and whatnot. Well, um, if there's no other questions, well, I suppose this is it. I have recorded this entire thing, if if you ever want to look back at it, I will upload it to YouTube. Now, I have no clue if any of this rambling was helpful at all, because it's a lot of information. So I hope you absorbed something out of this. Jesus Christ. But this was also just a very nice excuse for me to just talk about custom difficulty, because this is what I actually like about in DRG modding. Like, this is how I spend my time in DRG. Just figuring it, just playing crazy stuff that I like to do, and just making it. It's just very nice for me. That's all. So well, I hope this was help. So, anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up. So I can finally go eat breakfast. Jesus Christ. Hope this was helpful, and well, I'll see you all around. You can you can always just hit me up with DMs if, or you just always just ping me in like the custom difficulty channel if you need anything or whatnot. Oh dear. So yeah. Thanks for listening too, I suppose. Plan the plan the rest of seminar. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I'll be around for that, but hey, y'all could let's do something else. But yeah. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll sign off now. Goodbye.